Trina gave Lloyd an order before he went to interrogate Roger. Lloyd. Yes, boss. If you don't get a proper answer from him, just give up. Is that okay? Yes, but shake hands when you say goodbye at the end. A handshake, you say? You have to do it naturally. You know what I mean? Lloyd didn't even ask why. The night before in the alley, Trina explained everything. The one who killed the Kalsapa assassin was a wizard who specializes in close combat, so she wanted Lloyd to check Roger's hand for traces of training. Did you shake hands with your bare hand? Yes, but he was wearing gloves. Is that so? But there's no way you didn't notice with just one layer of gloves. Lloyd nodded. In the end, all he was aiming for was a handshake at the end. The questions that he asked before were a trick to divert the other person's attention. So how was it? Yes, I felt it as I shook hands with him. Lloyd delivered what he had confirmed as it was. He's an ordinary wizard without any training. What? Trina frowned. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Roger, who was left alone in his office after Lloyd left, sat in front of his work table and clenched his fist. Handshake, okay. In the eyes of a third party, it would be thought that it was just a polite way to end the meeting, but from Roger's point of view, he had no choice but to think that it was a show of deceit. Lloyd of the Nightcrawler Knights under the Security Bureau. Ages late 20s, glasses were worn on his face, and his hair was neatly parted. It must be said that he has an unshakable gaze and a personality that gets things done neatly. He felt it during the conversation. As if he had prepared all the questions in advance, Lloyd calmly and competently asked them one by one, like a well-written script. Roger had the illusion that he was building bricks when asked. The bricks piled up, surrounded him before he knew it, so he wouldn't escape. And lastly, Lloyd's handshake. Keep asking questions, influencing the other person mentally, and throw a decisive shot the moment he lets his guard down at the end. It's a very sophisticated way. If it was a stranger, he would shake hands with him without much thought, but Roger guessed right what he was thinking. That man named Lloyd must have checked my office before I came. As Roger entered through the door, his eyes were on the windowsills and shelves, and his fingertips skimmed through the books in the library. He checked the places that are difficult to reach and where dust is easy to accumulate. His behavior was restrained, and he even refused the light refreshments he offered. Roger was convinced that a person like Lloyd would not ask for a handshake without gloves. He was trying to confirm something by shaking hands. So what was he trying to confirm? Was he trying to measure the other person's skills by letting the magic flow through the hand he was holding? That is a very rude act that can be considered an attack on the other side. Even the Nightcrawler Knights cannot do such a thing carelessly. Furthermore, Roger is a teacher of Thean, and this identity can't be treated carelessly even by the Security Bureau. Then what can be confirmed simply by shaking hands? That's right, traces on the palm of his hand. Last night, the security officers visited the scene where I and Violetta fought. I don't know how they got there, but it was a close call. And he must have gotten a clue from the traces of the fight there. The culprit is a wizard, but he also handles weapons well. How is that possible? Even if asked like this, it would be possible for Nightcrawler Knights. There was magic, and there was a corpse stabbed with a sword. As they belong to the security agency, they are also elite, so they should have noticed right away. Was he trying to see if I was the one by shaking hands? They're smart people, using a handshake to confirm if a suspect is the culprit. However, since I knew about it, I could cope with it. Roger recalled the conversation he had with Seridan before leaving his hideout. Seridan. Huh? What? Before I go, I have a favor to ask of you. What is it? What do you need? Can you make some kind of gloves for my hands? They must be similar to human skin, but from a very soft material. What? Is it possible? Sure. However, it is difficult right now to be completely identical. I have to work on the material, and that takes time. That's fine. I can do the rest with my magic. Okay. There are ingredients left from making the infinitesimal sphere that Nora used, so it will work somehow. Oh, but what happened to the infinitesimal sphere? I tore it up and threw it away. What? Roger added a portion of the artificial skin he received from Seridan to the palm of the inside of the glove. That's right, the skin Lloyds felt in the glove as they shook hands was not Roger's real skin. Even if you're a security officer, you won't notice it. Sheridan's skills are the real deal, and the artificial skin she created is comparable to real skin. The face mask made of artificial skin can easily pass even thorough inspections in the border area. Officers of the Security Bureau have good brains, but that's it. Roger rolled up the corners of his mouth and began reviewing the test questions for the first test. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Senior, is that true? Are you not mistaken? You think I don't even know that? No, but... Stop it. There's no way Lloyd didn't notice. But, sir. Trina was quite disturbed since Roger was their only clue, but nothing suspicious about him was found. Then is the case back in the labyrinth? In other words, the real culprit was hiding somewhere in Leathervelk, but she couldn't figure out who it was because the city is huge and she doesn't know many people. Arsène Lupin, I thought I found his traces. Is she going to not catch him again? Trina Reinhell clenched her fist. During the time when she was called the Patriotic Frontier and made her name as an elite of the knights, she was always on a roll without knowing her failure, but she experienced defeat for the first time. She was born as an aristocrat, had natural talents, and with appropriate efforts, she never experienced failure until she met him. A man who steals what can't be stolen and plays a lot of tricks, Arsène Lupin. She wanted to find him right away if she could, but... I can't spend my time on an investigation that doesn't make any progress. Her role ended at the point where she couldn't find any clues. She is the leader of the Nightcrawler Knights belonging to the intelligence agency, and because of her position it was difficult for her to move around. Lloyd, Enya. Yes. Yes. I'm leaving for the capital again. Then the investigation into this case. Without a proper clue, we can't go any further. I'll report to the top that the investigation is temporarily suspended. Then is it over? I can't stay here forever, because I'm busy. So, you stay here. What? Stay here in Leathervelk, and if anything suspicious happens, don't hesitate to report it to me. Do you understand? Yes, but what about Senior? No. Lloyd has something else to do. Lloyd, do you agree? If it's your order. But if you say this all of a sudden. Enya. Please. Enya nodded with a determined face when she realized that this was an order from Trina Reinhels the individual, not from the security agency. Yes, sir. I'm sure you'll do well. Trina answered and was about to leave, but at that moment, Lloyd exclaimed. All right, boss. Are you going to keep going? Will you meet Mr. Roger in person? No. I can't do that. What? Why? The reason I came here in the first place was because of that kind of condition. I can't believe it. It was incomprehensible to Lloyd. Is it that hard to meet someone? Trina tried to explain the whole situation to her confused lieutenant, but felt someone approaching her and turned her head. Just in time. What? Lloyd and Enya also stared in the direction that Trina was looking at. There was a woman approaching slowly towards them. Since when? Although she was close enough to be easily seen with the naked eye, she did not feel anyone approaching. A beautiful woman with white and pale pink two-tone long hair waving in the morning sunlight was approaching them. She smiled brightly and waved her hand. Yay! Trina! Long time no see. Elisa, we met earlier this morning, what do you mean a long time? That's how I feel. Seeing her talking to Trina in a friendly manner, Enya and Lloyd were embarrassed inside. Elisa? Elisa Willow? She's the president of Thean Academy, isn't she? A genius wizard who achieved the 6th rank, Lexerer, at a young age. Elisa, what are you doing here? You're leaving soon, so I came to see my friend off. Huh. It's unnecessary consideration. That's what friends are for. If that's the case, then there's no reason why you couldn't arrange for that bastard named Roger Kalasai to meet me, right? No, that's different. Elisa shook her head. Don't bother our talented newbie too much. Looking at Elisa talking to her with a mysterious smile, Trina swallowed her irritation inside. The reason she couldn't meet Roger Kalasai in person was because none other than Elisa Willow interfered. You must like him quite a bit. Because he is a rare and talented person, but what would he do if he met Trina in person? You look at me like I'm someone who destroys people. Wrong. Trina stared at Alicia and then turned her head. We're leaving Enya, Lloyd. Oh, yes. Yes, sir. Trina, you're going to go like this? I will go. So there is no need to see off. Aren't you going to see the princess? She is also the blood of the imperial family. I don't have to check if she's doing well. You'll do well on your own. As if she didn't want to talk anymore, Trina stopped coldly, but Elisa was not dissatisfied or regretful with Trina's attitude. It seems to be natural between the two, so she just accepted it. In leaving. Maybe because of the old days, Trina added the last words. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. The president knows her? I shook my head as I watched secretly from the window. Even watching from afar, it is clear that the atmosphere between the two is not very friendly, but not completely hostile either. Still, they don't look that close to each other. Is this an ambiguous relationship? Two people, who were originally friends, meet each other as leaders and keep each other in check. Maybe it's because there was some kind of incident between the two of them in the past. I don't know exactly what happened. I'm glad that I don't have to face Trina Ryanhell in person. It's all thanks to the president's protection. If she hadn't stopped Trina Ryanhell, she would have been the one who came to see me, not Lloyd. I'm truly fortunate, and one thing I'm sure about this situation. The president decided to trust me. After the werewolf affair, Aiden and Javon Pelio's duel, and even the Almighty Stone incident that followed, I thought that the president acted when the knights of the security agency came to visit me. The president promised to take care of me. In other words, I have taken a big step toward becoming a trusted teacher of Theon. However, this is different from unconditional trust. Now, she thinks I'm a good guy, so she's protecting me. If there were any signs of doubt, the president might come forward and try to kill me. So I have to be as careful as possible to avoid that. Now, all that remains is to find the first order of the Black Dawn. The day of the first test was near. Roger finished reviewing the final exam questions in his office. Across from him, his assistant, Sedina, was sitting and diligently organizing all the papers. Sedina. Yes. No, Mr. Roger. Did anything happen recently? Roger asked Sedina, keeping his eye on the test questions. Seeing his concentrating look, Sedina looked at the scene in a blank slate without realizing it, and then she came to her senses and answered. Well, there really wasn't anything. Well, what are the others in the organization doing? Everyone is taking care of themselves. All of them are cautious in their actions, probably because the Security Bureau recently visited Theon. I see. Roger shook his head. He was quite relieved that the Black Dawn Society was not active at the moment and remained still. He doesn't know if they'll do anything during the first test. That would have been quite embarrassing. She's helpful at times like this. Trina Ryanhell was a troublesome opponent in many ways when he met the enemy, but now it is different. Thanks to her visit to Theon to investigate the Leatherbelt case, the members of the Black Dawn Society had to resign themselves. Being the shield that protects the Empire and the tycoon of the Security Bureau, she is considered the most dangerous existence for the Black Dawn. Considering her achievements so far, it is natural for them to lay low. How many secret organizations have been smashed by Trina's hands, and how many criminals have died in her hands? If Trina felt anything suspicious and started an investigation, there was a high possibility that the power of the Black Dawn Society would be greatly reduced. Of course, since this is an unprecedented secret organization, there are many powerful members hidden. If the two fought, no matter which side lost, Roger would not be disappointed. Perhaps that's why the members of the organization are careful and meet each other outside of Theon. Is there a meeting? Yeah, that's what I think. Sedina, didn't you go to such a meeting? Yes? Yes. Seeing Sedina getting pale, Roger wanted to ask something. In the first place, she is also a member of the Black Dawn, so she should have been invited. Still, Sedina would have been visibly depressed in the past, but this time, she didn't think much of it. There was no one around her back then, but now there is Roger. Just as the two of them were about to end their conversation, Sedina opened her mouth as if she remembered something. Come to think of it, there was one unusual thing. There was? Yeah. Actually, it's kind of weird to report to Mr. Roger, but... Explain. I'll judge after hearing it myself. Oh, yes. 3 days ago, 3 members of the organization were caught by police. They're all only third orders though. Caught by the police? That was a little strange. Well, even if they were third orders, they wouldn't have been so stupid as to be caught by the police. Yes, that's right. Someone else got involved in the case. Who is it? It's said to be a student of Theon. Student? Roger took his eyes off the questions and stared at Sedina. Embarrassed to receive that gaze from him, Sedina shrugged her shoulders even more and nodded her head. Yes. There are 3 students in total, 2 boys and 1 girl. I don't know if you know, but they're also students in your class. Students in my class? 2 men and 1 woman. Roger could immediately recall the unusual combination. Aiden, Leo, and Tracy Fryad? Yes, that's right. I can't believe you remembered right away. As expected, first teacher. How did those kids caught the third orders in town right? It was because of that. Roger remembered the existence of the bulletin board in Theon. The exact name is Application Board. It is a legitimate means of making money that Theon students can use. Did the students carrying out the quest find any traces? Yeah. I guess so. Of course, this quest is similar to what the mercenaries do. Some difficult quests will be formally requested through the mercenary request office, but there are also miscellaneous quests that mercenaries do not take. Theon tuition is expensive, and although there is a scholarship system, it covers the pure educational expenses, but does not cover the cost of living expenses or other materials necessary for research and experiments. It is said that if you enter a club, research costs will be paid steadily, but establishing a club is not easy. After all, for students who are short of money, this is the only way to make quick money. Other than that, working part-time in Theon was also possible. Still, they are high-quality workers who can use magic, so wouldn't that hurt their pride? And so the bulletin board appeared. It's mostly used by low-income students who lack money. A noble family, or a wealthy merchant family, is never short of money in the first place. The rich students always get plenty of support, and they can get most of what they want. Naturally, the main students who used this request board were the commoners or those who lacked money. Very often, there are nobles who apply for entertainment. This application board is said to be available to anyone, but of course there are conditions. There is also a difficulty or risk in the request, so the grade is important to receive the request. The higher the grade, the more difficult the request can be, but the lower grades could only take the easy requests. Of course, even if the student grade is low, a temporary would be issued by Theon if they pass a test. Even so, they're still in their first year. No matter how special Aiden magic is, he cannot receive high-level quests. Nevertheless, while carrying out his given mission, he made a contribution to catching as many as 3 third orders for the Black Dawn Society. Is it a coincidence or destiny led him? Roger paid attention to Aiden since the werewolf incident. He felt that there was something about him that attracted the incident. Roger thought of a board in his head, a large chessboard made of black and white tiles. He checked his pieces one by one. The pieces I can use. The members of the UNON organization were elites who were united and had extraordinary abilities. Their roles are rook, knight, and bishop. Aiden and his friends, on the other hand, are actually pawns. He was still an idealistic kid, but the presence of pawns in chess was sometimes more threatening than anyone else. The pawn that survived could become a bishop or a knight. It could be a queen. Pawns are nothing but junk, but they have infinite potential to become anything. Roger rated Aiden quite highly. He possessed talents, but in particular, his mental strength and tenacity were way above other students. Reality is different from chess, so even if he survived for a long time, he could not be promoted unconditionally, but Aiden might go beyond queen and become a king. Mr. Roger? What's wrong? Roger returned to reality at Sedina's voice. I asked about the treatment of those students. Treatment? Yes. No matter how coincidental it was, they have been instrumental in the capture of our members of the Black Dawn. Besides, that student named Aiden also uses bizarre magic to nullify magic. Sedina made a suggestion to cut out the sprouts of the student named Aiden in advance since he's dangerous. Roger shook his head. All right, let it go. Are you going to leave it as is? Yes, it does not pose a threat to us right now. Moreover, if we mess with Theon students, we risk revealing our existence. But more importantly, those who were beaten by students and arrested are useless to our organization. It's a good thing. I see. Sedina admired Roger's words. Perhaps because he was a first order, he had a different perspective on the incident. He may seem like a terrible cold-blooded man, but Sedina, who was by Roger's side for a while, understood an executive's point of view. Anything else, Sedina? Yes, the members are just saying to take care of ourselves until the test is over. Is that so? I see. Roger said and rose from his seat. Sedina stood up as if she had been waiting and picked up a bunch of test papers. Let's go. Yes. It was time for the first test. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. There was tension in the 80-person lecture hall. It was natural to be nervous now that the first test was approaching, but this time the situation was a little different. Opening the long-awaited relay for the next 3 days is the test of Roger Kalasai. Even as it is an open-book test, it was no exaggeration to say that the final boss came out from the beginning for students. Arg. I studied, but I have no idea. Wouldn't you get the answer if you read the books? How hard are you trying to make an open-book test? All the students who were seated had no choice but to tremble as they watched the flowing second hand. Some shook their legs and some bit their nails. The moment when the endlessly rotating clock hand points to the right time, the sound of the door opening thundered through the quiet classroom. At least the students waiting for the exam had no choice but to feel that way. It was Roger who opened the door and came in. Unlike usual coats, this time he wore a simple style with a gray vest and suit pants on top of a white dress shirt, but his sharp gaze was still there, and his mood never softened. As everyone knows, today is the first test. A small-sized assistant who was standing next to Roger whined and placed the test paper on the platform. The total duration of the exam is 3 hours. As previously announced, it is an open-book test. We'll start in 5 minutes, so if you haven't been to the bathroom yet, go now, because once the test starts, no one can leave until the answer sheet is submitted. It was to prepare for any possible negation. In fact, there are many cases like this every year. If you study hard, you can do well on the test. There's also a partial score, so you don't have to give out a blank paper because it's difficult. And the important warning was this. I'll warn you of one thing. If you're caught cheating on my test. Roger's voice, which was usually cold, fell even heavier. Then I promise you, I'll make sure you pay the price. The whole classroom was frozen by Roger's warning. The students didn't even dream of cheating since they were afraid of Roger, but hearing the warning it became clear. Don't ever cheat. Of course, I will be the supervisor of this test. If he was the supervisor, they would never dream of cheating even if they were confident in their magic skills. Some students had no choice but to close their eyes when even that last hope was trampled. The wind blew on the platform as soon as Roger finished speaking. Under Roger's spell, the test papers were scattered in all directions and came down slowly one by one in front of the students. Wow. Passing test papers to 80 students with wind magic made them realize how ridiculous and great that Roger is. It seems that no students want to go to the bathroom. Looks like everything is ready. Roger took a golden watch out of his pocket. The test is starting now. This was the first wall Thean students had to face. I checked the Ko-Fi page and I saw that it was taken down, so I made another one. The link, it's now working. I also worked on the comments issue. Maybe you didn't notice, but the comments didn't appear even though they were approved. Leave some comments to this chapter so I can check if everything works. Only the sound of magic pens across the paper echoed softly in the quiet classroom. It seemed like the sound of insects gnawing at something, but in a way, it was not a wrong expression. Because the students' mental strength was being gnawed by a bug called the pressure of the test in real time. Ugh, it's hard. What is this? I saw it in the book, but why can't I solve it? Is this a real problem? How could I be so stupid? He didn't say those words out loud, but he can see the students' thoughts. It will be very painful. Roger stood upright on the platform and stared at the students. As previously warned, the test is held in an open book test. It means that it doesn't matter if you look up the contents related to the problem in the textbook. But if you look at the textbook and know the answer right away, can it be called a test? It's not just about asking for one-dimensional knowledge. I twisted the questions over and over again, so you won't be able to see through the hidden trap. He added a trap in the middle of the problems. It's in all the test questions, so students will be troubled. There are only 20 questions, but that is the reason why the exam time was 3 hours. Oh my gosh. Even though I studied hard, it's difficult. Renee also felt steam coming out of her head. Her eyes are spinning, and the letters on the test paper seem to be dancing. It was very difficult, although she never missed a review. She was confident that the first test would check the basics, and from the moment she faced the first problem, her hair felt white. Question 1. The magic liquid serves to store mana inside in the process of absorbing mana from the atmosphere. After 10 years of exposure to nature, the magic liquid can be converted into a magic stone that supplies mana that wizards can use. In order to induce crystallization with magic stones, by refining this magic liquid in its pure form. First of all, the relationship between magical liquid and magic stones is basic knowledge that is learned in the magic release class. The magic liquid that has matured for more than 10 years crystallizes and turns into mana stones, and then it's processed in order to make artifacts or magic tools used by wizards. The wands that wizards use are made by mixing special wood with mana stones. I expected this to be on the test. Mr. Rudger said over and over again that it's going to be in the test. So she studied carefully and in order to not forget anything. But it's still too hard. Renee kept on reading the question while screaming inside. Hereinafter, the magic solution was added to an aqueous contra solution and melted to form A and B, which was aggregated by adding collodium metal. When you try to grind these A and B substances in the same laboratory under the same conditions, describe the formula for which of the two can be made first. However, the temperature of the laboratory remains constant at 30 degrees, and the pressure is 0.982 atmospheric pressure. The crystallization reaction of B applies the standard rate of change. This is only question number 1? What's even more surprising is that this question number 1 had the lowest score. She wondered if she was the only one who thought so, and the other students around her were also grunting. They were prepared, but the questions were more difficult than they expected, so the pressure felt by the students must be considerable. Get a hold of yourself. Renee thought she was fine so far, and she glanced over the problems. Yes, it's all difficult, but if she read them carefully, she could see that the questions were only from what she actually learned. Rudger did not lie, the questions were from what he taught in class. She could be sure, because she listened to his class more enthusiastically than anyone else. Maybe it's because you're a sophomore, but you're solving it right away. Princess Arender, who sits next to her, is already in the middle of solving the problems. She is a model student and Renee felt motivated seeing her. I can do it. Her eyes sparkled. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. It's a pretty complicated formula. Flora Lumos solved the test questions with a blank face. Her hand, holding the pen, did not rest for a while. Rather, it was almost twice as fast as other students who work hard. She also vaguely felt it. Rudger said they were given 3 hours of time, but that was cutting it close. If I write continuously without resting as much as possible, it will only take about 2 hours and 45 minutes. The questions were also tailored to the level of freshmen, because Rudger understands the average abilities of students. Moreover, it is not just difficult to solve the problems. This matter follows the Empire's basic standards, but it's actually a trap. The Ruppelmosk experimental formula came from the Durman Kingdom, not the Exilian Empire, so of course I have to follow that standard. The standard itself is a kind of deception. He taught very little in class, and if students neglect to take notes, they are bound to be wrong. Flora grasped the intention of the examiner at once and wrote down the correct answers. While looking calm on the surface, she continued to explore the problem inside and was admiring the way the examiner made it. You're going to change the magic formula like this? Example 1 and Example 2 are superficially similar, but the direction of the flow is fundamentally different. Students who don't know will think it's the same. That's a good question. Flora thought she could solve everything in an hour at this rate. Realizing something, she suddenly stopped her pen. Am I really enjoying this test right now? It was unbelievable. For her, tests were nothing more than a boring event. Writing down and explaining all the facts that she already knew in a way that is not difficult. What could be less interesting than that? It is possible to fall into contemplation in a class where teachers with insufficient ability talk freely, but in a test, it is annoying to move your hands directly. Nevertheless, she did not miss the top spot. She is not only gifted with the ability to feel magic, but also has an excellent brain that understands magic. Therefore, it was true her life in Theon did not have any particular stimulation. She finished most of the tests in less than 30 minutes, but for the first time she was interested in test questions and found them interesting. It can't be. I can't believe I'm having fun on the test. What a disgrace. Flora shook her hand without a pen and clenched her fists. I can't help but solve the problem to build up my self-esteem. Flora imagined Roger's reaction when she submitted a blank paper. Is that a blank sheet? I see, after all, this was your limit. Yeah. I'm sure he'll say this. He won't get angry or annoyed, he will just bluntly point out her shortcomings. He wouldn't even ask why or what happened. Other teachers would make a fuss. No. I've never seen anything like that. So what should I do? There is only one way. The best way to surprise him is to do the best in this test. First place? No, the important thing is to aim for a perfect score. Yeah, this is a fight for pride. A fight between students and teachers, a fierce battle that has been going on between her and Roger, with her record being 2 wins and 2 loses. How can I forget those painful days of defeat? Not this time. I'll show you that I won by getting a perfect score. Roger himself didn't think much of it, but Flora had already decided on her own. Flora showed strong motivation and began to focus on the problems. She defended herself that she was just trying hard to beat Roger. She was not aware that the more she solved the problems, the more she was immersed in them. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. It's quiet. At first, the sound of suffering that was heard here and there disappeared after about 30 minutes. Roger, who was standing on the platform and monitoring possible cheating, thought this was enough, and gave Sedina a signal. Yes. She answered in a very small, yet strong voice. Without a word, Roger pointed his finger at 2 chairs in the corner. Sedina nodded and brought the 2 chairs to the platform. What are you going to do? Let go. Yes. And? Sit down. Yes? Yes. Sedina put a chair aside and sat down. Roger also put a chair nearby and sat comfortably. Take a rest. Yes? There are still 2.5 hours left before the exam is over. As it is the first test, I, a teacher, and you, an assistant, cannot be left out, but your legs hurt if you continue to stand for the rest of the time. So sit back and relax. Sir. Sedina looked up at Roger with her impressed look. Roger, who was now familiar with the gaze, suddenly realized that another gaze was on him and turned his head. Among the students taking the exam, a girl with pure white hair was staring at him with a strong gaze. Julia Plumhart. As soon as she met Roger's gaze, she immediately focused on solving the exam questions, but Roger was only bothered for a moment by the disrespectful gaze she had sent. Also, her target was Sedina, not him. Well, that's it. There is no need to point it out. Roger sat in a chair with his arms folded and his legs crossed. The remaining time is 2 hours and 30 minutes. It's quite long from a waiting standpoint, but it will feel very tight from a student's point of view, because that's how he coordinated it. Even if it's only the basics, I deliberately twisted the questions so it's going to take a while. If they can't solve all the problems, they need to focus on what they're good at. These students were not fools, so they were focusing on questions they could definitely answer. Even the least accomplished students will be able to specialize in some aspects as long as they enter Thean. As a result, the students were now in a trance and into solving problems. For a teacher, it was a very desirable appearance. Flora Lumos was also staring at the test questions. There are a lot of good students. Renee and the princess sitting next to her were working hard. Aiden and his friend sitting behind him also looked troubled, but they didn't seem to have given up. The beast girl over there is good too. Is she Iona Abai? She had brown skin and much darker black hair and was working hard at the problems in an unflappable manner. He thought it would be difficult for her because she is a beast man, but she was surprisingly quick to adapt. Is it the beast people magic? The beast people also have their own culture, history, and traditions. Instead of using magic, the beast people used the power of Mother Nature, called spirit. Spirit is similar to the spirits of nature, but it is distinctly different. If the spirit is shaped in any form by the rich vitality of nature, spirit is a big concept that encompasses not only nature but also ancestors and animals. In the magical summoning series, the specialization called belongs to that. Originally, there was no specialization in the summoning series, but it was added as humans in the past suppressed the beast people and absorbed their culture. Of course, the beast people were angry that humans had bound their long traditions to a category of magic. Because of the repulsion at that time, the beast people reject magic, so it must be the same now. But a beast girl came to learn magic at Theon, a general organization that teaches magic. Her last name was Abai? I know that the surname of the beast people is influenced by their bloodline. Although her last name is Abai, that is so it can be called comfortably in human society. In fact, her last name was Obeli, which had to be said with a slightly increased accent. It means Bellis blood, and for humans, it was like a noble family. Belly, I think I've heard of it somewhere. I don't know much about the beast people, so it was a little vague. I have no choice but to look it up later. Thinking so, 2 hours passed before I knew it. You have 30 minutes to finish the exam. I won't accept submissions if you're even a minute late, so keep that in mind. The student's pen speed became urgent at his words. The next test will be fun since it's a little different. Roger took a strange pleasure from seeing the students in pain. Dang dang. The bell rang announcing the end of the exam. It's over, everyone stop writing. If you get caught doing something ridiculous here, I'll treat it as cheating and give you 0 points. Roger's warning was effective as the students stopped moving their pens. Assistant Sedina. Yes. When Roger called her name, Sedina rose from her seat and hurriedly collected the students' test papers, one by one. When the test paper completely left their hands, the students sighed as they realized that the test was over. I should have studied a little harder. Ah. I knew this. The formula is correct, but I made a mistake and the answer is wrong. Hey, is this the right way to do it? What did you write? Ugh, it's frustrating. I made a mistake. I can't tell even if I look in the book. The students gathered among themselves and discussed briefly what the answers were, but that did not change the answers they had already written. After retrieving all 80 sheets of test paper, Sedina arranged them neatly and brought them to Roger. Great job. Roger picked up the test papers. Everyone had a hard time taking the first exam. There are still 2 more days left for the first test, so don't overdo it and try to adjust your condition to the best. Of course, even if he said this, the students who crammed will do the same. Still, as a teacher, he just advised his students. After saying these words, Roger left the classroom. Whoa. This was their first examination in Theon, and although it just ended, Renee felt relieved as if she had crossed the biggest wall. No, we still have a lot of tests left, right? Let's not be lax already. Still, I can think this positively because I did pretty well on the test. Thanks to her constant review, none of the 20 questions were submitted blank. When I first saw the test questions, I wondered what was so difficult, but when I looked carefully, I realized that it was not necessarily the case. As she felt the flow and solved the problems in a trance, 3 hours had passed. It's a relief that there was enough time to solve everything. Renee looked around with a little relief. She was going to ask Arender if she did well. But since she's a princess and a senior, she must have done better than me. Unlike her, who was puzzled at first, Arender immediately began solving the problems. Renee, who was going to ask Arender, had no choice but to postpone the action for a while. Senior? Huh? What's wrong? Oh, no. The you looked a little bit embarrassed. Oh, yeah? Is that so? It was as Renee said. Arender was restless after submitting the test paper and her confidence was gone. Her legs were shaking and she was stuttering like a person who failed the exam. Oh no. There's no way, right? Renee ignored her negative thoughts and asked Arender. Senior, did you do well on the exam? As Mr. Roger said, everything was from what he taught in class. Really? What do you mean, really? As soon as she heard Arender ask back, Renee felt the corners of her mouth twitching unconsciously. Her anxious thoughts were gradually coming to reality. Senior. That I don't know if I can ask you this question. Huh? Yeah, it doesn't matter. Ask me anything you're curious about. Test, have you ruined it? Arender, who answered confidently, closed his lips tightly. Senior? She was even turning her head to avoid her gaze, and her ears were flushed red in the midst of her colorful blonde hair. Arender was ashamed. Senior, don't tell me. Even her own imagination seemed to insult her, but she couldn't help but ask. Did you really screw up on the test? Flinch. When asked by line, Irender shook her shoulders. From that gesture, Renee realized that Irender, the third princess of the empire, who was called everyone's idol, ruined this exam. Really? No, is it because you're not feeling well today? Recently, you had too many things to think about. A review of the future of the country? Because of that, right? Irender focused on the test more than anyone else, but Renee was so confused that she had to believe it. At least, she thinks the princess is a great person who can easily occupy the top ranks in any field. Junior Renee. Irender, who regained her composure to some extent, opened her mouth. People are saying that everyone has their own field. If there is something you are good at, there is something you are bad at. So what this means is that no one is good at anything. Do you understand? He mean, you're not in a bad condition, you're not particularly tired today, you just failed the test? Junior Renee, I didn't pass the exam, because I wasn't good enough. Just in case, what was your ranking last year? As Renee remembers, Thean has more than 800 students per grade. Of course, the higher the grade, the more students drop out, so the number of senior students decreases considerably, but every year, a corresponding number of new students comes in. Irender is a sophomore this year, so it would be no surprise if her grades were based on the 800 students when she was in the first grade. Why are you asking that? Don't tell me you're judging people by their rankings, too, are you? You're not in the top 500, are you? The moment she saw that Irender's eyes widened as she turned around, Renee was startled. Irender, who looked like a model, is actually really bad at studying theory. It was a great shock. Even the other nobles were overwhelmed by her atmosphere and could not approach her recklessly, so the princess was always alone. She looks like a typical model student, but she is actually in the middle and lower ranks in theory class. In the practical classes, my ranking is high. Irender exclaims desperately. It wasn't a lie. In the theory classes, she was ranked 500 out of 800 students, but she was in the top 30 when it came to practical skills. Because she was born into a good family and has a strong bloodline, her magical powers are far greater than that of other students. Her rank in the practical exam was only possible because she received a thorough early education before she came to Thean. When she saw that Irender looked like she might burst into tears, Renee hurriedly nodded and responded. Oh, well, that's possible. Besides, these days, there's a strong trend of putting more emphasis on practice than theory, right? Right? I admit that I'm not good at theory and knowledge, but I'm also proud of my skills as a wizard. Renee responded to Irender's words while sweating, but inside she was a little disappointed. As expected, you shouldn't judge people by their appearance. She felt that the noble image of the third princess she knew was ruined. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. In her office on the top floor of Thean main building, the president, Elisa, looked down through the window. The first test has finally begun. Wilford, who brought the refreshments, nodded at Eliza's words. I hope all the students get good results. If they've tried, they'll definitely get them. I guess so. A total of 4 tests are held in one semester and a year is divided into 2 semesters, so students have to take as many as 8 tests a year. Not only students, but also teachers who made the tests were tired. Above all else, because their job is to raise elites called wizards, the tests were quite intense and radical. That's why there were a lot of dropouts in Thean as each grade level went up. In the first test of the first semester, students who were proud of themselves as geniuses competed with students who were in a similar situation for the first time and realized how narrow the well they were living in was. In the case of students whose hearts were broken, it was not uncommon for them to leave Thean after the first test was over. I hope many students can hold out this time. That's why you asked them to take the first test lightly. I did. Of course, the kids who will fall away. Alicia felt sorry for that. She didn't view the competition itself as bad. However, it was her honest opinion that she wanted to avoid the fact that some students were ruined due to excessive competition. As Thean's president, she wanted to make sure a large number of students get a great education and spread their talents. How about the new teachers? They must have given exam questions while working as a teacher for the first time. Weren't they nervous? Would you like to take a look? Wilford brought the prepared test paper and handed it to the president. In the case of exam questions, it was possible because the president had the right to see it directly. Among the new teachers who gave theory tests were Bruno from the Golem Studies class, Chris Benamor and Roger Kelisai, who are in charge of the manifestation system. In particular, this test was a matchup full of curiosity among Theon's teachers, as the two new teachers, who are polar opposites, gave a theoretical test in the same field. Well, Mr. Bruno asked about the magic circuit that drives the golem, and the structural mechanics of the golem. The difficulty itself seems to be okay. Yes. He has a special affection for golems, so I think it's okay. Elisa glanced through the exam questions Bruno had made, and nodded her head with satisfaction. He didn't show anything that exceeded expectations, and was just average, so it didn't seem like a problem. Next, it's Chris Benamor and Roger Kelisai. Do I have to compare them? Actually, you can't do it without making a comparison. Wilford nodded with a wry smile. Elisa quickly scanned Chris' test questions. Well, Chris asked questions on the side of mana release and elemental attributes. Yes, and it's the same goes for Mr. Roger. No matter how different the grades they were in charge of, to openly give exam questions in the same field was like declaring war on Roger. It must have hurt his pride to lose the bet. Since that day, Hugo Bertag faction has been forced to hang their heads down for almost a week. Right. It was so refreshing to see him keep his mouth shut. I feel like I have regained my old self-esteem. Alicia smirked at Chris' test questions. I think this test is a simple revenge for Chris. No, I don't think it's simple, he seems to have put his heart and soul into it. As a result, Chris Benamor's exam papers were filled with jargon-filled problems, dotted with all kinds of difficult words. What kind of test is this? He's just bragging about his knowledge. Elisa clicked her tongue and shook her head. Chris Benamor's excessive arrogance and self-pride eventually led him to the point where he increased the exam difficulty to an absurd level. Will students be able to solve these problems properly? I told him to give the basics for the first test, but he's already playing around like this. In particular, this theory is something students learn in the 3rd grade. Of course, even though it was something that was taught in the 3rd grade, there were students who already learned it, the aristocratic students of the upper class, because they were educated before they joined Theon. On the other hand, the commoner students weren't. The problem was that he discriminated against the commoner students and favored the noble students. Really? Elisa had a headache, but she couldn't blame Chris Benamor for this either. The test is up to the teacher, and if she interferes with this, it doesn't look good. Because she was Theon's president, she couldn't do anything she wanted. Well then, let's see how Mr. Roger handled the problem. If it were his usual self, it might be more or less the same as Chris, or maybe the questions were monotonous because of his overly rigid atmosphere. Elisa looked at Roger's test questions with that in mind. What? She opened her eyes wide. Elisa, who was staring at Roger's test paper, was very surprised. This, maybe. After muttering something unintelligible, she quickly pursed her lips, picked up her pen, and began to solve the problems. Wilford, who was watching the scene, quietly backed away. It was unusual to see Elisa, the president, like that, so he didn't want to interrupt her. If it's her ability, it'll take less than 5 minutes to finish it all. But Wilford's prediction was wrong. This is because Elisa showed no signs of ending even though it was more than 5 minutes after she started solving Roger's test questions. 10 minutes. 15 minutes. 20 minutes have passed like that. Even then, Elisa focused on the problems by endlessly teasing the pen point like a person possessed by something. Has the president ever held on to a problem for so long? Wilford was inwardly taken aback by such an unexpected situation. Elisa would always write down the answers to the questions on the spot while looking at the test questions submitted every semester. It was a kind of evaluation of teachers in Theon. And all that assessment was made entirely by the president, Elisa herself. Elisa preferred to solve the test questions given by the teachers herself since she was also a wizard with a great passion for learning. It was a pleasant experience just to look at the problem in a new way she was unaware of. Occasionally, in the case of easy questions, she would just skim over them, but she never took more than 5 minutes to solve the questions even for the 4th and 5th grade exams, which are very difficult. Even the difficult questions that made her head throb didn't impress her much. Maybe that's why Elisa was feeling bored these days. So when she saw so few interesting things, she would be too preoccupied with them, just like right now. Elisa recalled the previous her, when she was still learning and was eager to explore the unknown of magic. The sense of accomplishment and pleasure when you finally succeed, even though you feel hopeless about the knowledge you see for the first time. It took Elisa 30 minutes to solve Roger's test questions, but it was also because of her desire to slowly savor the delicious dishes, although Roger's questions were demanding in the diversity of thinking. Of course, it would have taken at least 15 to 20 minutes, even if she did her best. It's amazing. Are you finally done? Wilford, who was waiting, asked in a surprised voice. I'm sorry, I made you wait. Haha. No, I'm glad, it's been a while since I've seen the president so motivated. Well, that's true. Alicia did not bother to deny that she was absorbed by the problems. She thought these were really good problems. While demanding a solid foundation, it asks for diversity of opinions and a flexible way of thinking. There were many pitfalls while solving the problem, but even when she saw them, she felt more pleasant than annoyed. It's really amazing. These problems were created by a new teacher. I want to let other teachers solve them. Is it that good? Mr. Roger is such a boring person that I thought he would just give ordinary questions for the exam. Elisa shrugged her shoulders. I was mistaken. Come to think of it, Roger showed magic beyond basic common sense. Wasn't this the source code magic that he demonstrated to his students in his first class? Magic that enables magic to be implemented at a high speed by making it ridiculously fast. It was something that couldn't be created by ordinary people. It was a flawless test paper. Compared to Chris' test questions? There's no comparison. Serious exploration and respect for learning and a means to boast of one's knowledge. Putting them on the same line is an insult to one's side. Chris Benamor tried to prove he was superior to Roger Kellisai with the test questions, but Roger didn't care about Chris Benamor in the first place. He didn't even respond to his brawl, he just did the best he could. Indeed, can this be seen as a fight? If you ask Chris to solve this, his expression will be quite impressive. Elisa smiled playfully like a child, imagining what would happen sooner or later. Wilford shook his head at the sight, saying, I can't stop you. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Roger put the test papers in his suitcase. Since he finished the test as the first batter, he will be able to take it easy and grade it for the rest of the test period. I put a lot of effort into this question, but I'm also curious about what the students wrote. Will the students who usually listen to the class perform well? How many unexpected incorrect answers would the students who did not study properly give out? As a teacher, he had a strange expectation. Although it was a false identity, Roger felt his own nature in his work. On his way back to his dormitory, Roger found students gathered in front of him. Have they finished their test? Oh, is it a practical test? Roger was quite familiar with the person who was leading the 50 or so students. The first thing he saw was pink hair that shines under the bright sunlight. She was kind to everyone and always smiling, like a princess from a fairy tale. It was Selena. It must be a test for the Spirit Studies class. Selena was in charge of the specialty, Spirit, in the summoning series. Spirits are the embodiment of the energy of nature that exists in Mother Nature. Spiritology is the study of borrowing their power through communication with such spirits. As a result, the theoretical part was all about the history of spirituality, and in fact, most of the conducted classes were practical classes. From how to summon the spirits, to the contract with the spirits, to how to communicate with the spirits and use their powers. It's still the beginning of the semester, so even if it's a test, it won't be that difficult. There are no spirits around the students. Is the first test making a contract with a spirit? Since there are only a limited number of people who can learn spirit studies, the test itself was focused on absolute evaluation rather than relative evaluation. Even if you are an average student, you will be able to pass if you succeed in signing a contract with a lower spirit. As Selena was thinking, she saw Roger getting closer. Oh, Mr. Roger. Selena greeted him with a smile. Are you done with your exams? Come to think of it, you said your test was first, right? Yes, I'm on my way home after finishing it a little while ago. Oh, I see. I'm just starting an exam. Is this a spiritism test? Yes, would you like to take a look? Roger, who was about to refuse, couldn't do it as she stared intently at him, because Selena was giving Roger an SOS gaze. Are you nervous? Roger understood why she asked him to come with her. This test must be the first for Selena, and as a teacher, evaluating students can be a burdensome and stressful task. As a result, she turned to Roger, who had already completed the exam, for help. Roger wasn't in charge of spirit studies, so he couldn't really help her. It's also true that she would feel relieved when at least a colleague is around. Normally, it was something that he would easily overlook and make an excuse that he was busy with grading. But he suddenly thought that they'd been eating and talking together so far, and it would be cold to refuse her. No matter how fake you are, you're a teacher right now, it's not good to be hated by your colleagues. The aristocratic faction teachers led by Chris Benamor were already hostile to him. Could he reject Selena, who was popular among students and teachers, so easily? If he did that, his reputation that he worked hard on would be ruined. In fact, I don't care about my reputation. The important thing was that he was also helped by Selena, and he couldn't ignore her request. Thanks to her approaching him first, he was able to talk to other teachers. I will. Selena's expression brightened noticeably as Roger nodded while the students watched the two with strange eyes. What? Is Mr. Roger coming? What's the relationship between them? Are they dating? I don't think so. It's because they're both new teachers. Oh, right. You like teacher Selena. What? It's not true. Selena, who gained courage, opened her mouth while the students were talking among themselves. The exam will start soon, so let's all move. Let's finish fast. Yes. The students moved busily according to Selena's words. Selena took the lead with Roger, followed by the students. The place that they arrived was the entrance of Forest of Fantasy, one of the 3 forests of Theon. In it there are a huge flood of spirits, animals, and other ecosystems. Forest of Fantasy was the largest among the 3 major forests in Theon. The risk level is level 3, and the general public is prohibited from entering. However, compared to the other 2 forests with a risk level of 2 or higher, the Forest of Fantasy is relatively safe and it will not be a big problem as they stay at the entrance and don't go deep in the forest. In fact, I think this is a safe space because it's often used as a test site. Traces of humans were visible everywhere. Even the no-entry signs or guidelines made along the way. Roger lifted his head and looked up at the endlessly towering trees. Trees with thick roots like large pillars soared high toward the sky. Their height seemed to be over 10 meters. Even though they haven't fully entered the forest yet, he thought that the inside of this fantasy forest would be so dense that it resembled the Amazon. Is that the spirit of light? Something was floating in the air, sprinkling a subtle light through the trees. Indeed, it is easy to notice the spirits from the entrance of the forest, perhaps because it was a forest full of vitality. Here it would be easy to sign a contract even for students who are not yet familiar with spirituality. I announced in advance that this test is about signing a contract with a spirit. You can use your magic to communicate with the spirit and become friends. Selena acted as she spoke. She closed her eyes and activated her magical powers. A warm magical light flashed around Selena and the students exclaimed in admiration. Oh. Wow. That's the ability of a spirit studies teacher. Spirits hidden throughout the forest appeared one by one in response to Selena's magic. Some curious spirits flew into the air and wandered around Selena. In an instant, there were cute spirits around Selena. The beautiful sight of a princess in the forest kept the students silent. Selena, who opened her eyes, looked at the little spirits all around her and smiled benevolently, and then she reached out her hand towards the spirit that was like a pure white cotton ball. Hello. Pyong. The pure white cotton ball accepted Selena's greeting. Roger also watched the scene silently. Hee hee. You all saw it, right? It's not difficult. You just have to do it like teacher. Maybe it was because her words gave them courage, the students immediately activated their magical power and attempted to communicate with the spirits. Small spirits gathered around the students. Wow. It's working. Oh, he's so cute. Hello. The students' joyful shouts erupted everywhere. The scene where spirits and students gathered was quite pleasing to Roger's eyes. Not wanting to disturb them, Roger stood a little far from the students. Would you like to try, Mr. Roger? Selena approached Roger and said. He was going to ask how the students' tests were going, but shook his head when he saw about 3 assistants working hard to guide them. What? Why? I'm not very welcomed by the spirits. What? No way. The spirits are so nice. Let me introduce you to a cute spirit. It's the spirit of light who signed a contract with me a while ago, and I named it Pong Pong. Selena said so and held out a ball of white cotton on her palm to Roger, but soon she opened her eyes wide. Huh? Pong Pong? The spirit in her palm was shaking. Pong Pong? What's wrong with you? Selena immediately understood why the spirit was doing this. Are you afraid? It wasn't just Pong Pong, the other spirits who wandered through the forest didn't approach Roger either. Roger replied familiarly to Selena's bewildered look. I told you. What? The spirits don't like me very much. Spirits are born from nature. They have existed since the existence of Mother Nature in the beginning, and of course, they have lived in this world longer than humans. Spirits derived from nature retain the power of nature. That is why they are strong, beautiful, and the purest. There are only two kinds of emotions that such spirits feel toward humans, like and indifference. Therefore, when spirits sign contracts with humans, they determine the criteria based on curiosity. No matter how cruel the opponent is, even if they are pointed at by the same people, the spirits don't care. Because the standard of good and evil that humans share in front of Mother Nature was nothing more than a speck of dust. Nature is not afraid of humans, and humans are also a part of Mother Nature. They were one of the elements of the world. Spirits derived from nature have no reason to fear humans, who are part of nature. However, it was happening in front of her now. Spirits were afraid of one human being. Selena knew that there has never been a case like this. Mr. Roger, what's going on? Teacher Selena, you don't have to be so surprised. Seeing Selena staring at him like he was something strange, Roger thought he should calm her down a bit. There are so many different people in the world. There is nothing strange even if there are people who hate spirits. You look hateful to the spirits? Yes. I have such a unique physique. Roger's excuses were, in fact, absurd to even call them excuses, but this was the best excuse Roger could give, because she can't tell the truth of his true physique. Really? Of course, Selena was not a complete fool either. There is a degree of naivety, but even she would never have believed such nonsense. However, if the person who said it was Roger, the story would be different. Roger was a mysterious man. Since he came to Theon, he has shown great skills one after another, unbelievably good for a new teacher. Among them, the most famous is the creation of a new magic called source code, which has never existed before. Even her, who is a teacher, feels like she is going back to her student days whenever she sees Roger. Even if people say the same thing, the persuasiveness of it depends on who the messenger is. The existence of Roger to Selena now was reliable enough to believe whatever he said. And look. It's mostly the low-level spirits who hate me, other spirits do not. Oh, but are there only low-level spirits around? Then you can check out the spirit that Selena is calling. Most of the spirits floating around now are low-level spirits. Selena, on the other hand, has signed contracts with intermediate spirits or higher, as she was invited to become a teacher at Theon at a young age. She already signed contracts with 3 kinds of intermediate spirits of water, wind, and earth attributes. Oh. It was as Roger said. Her contract spirits, invisible to the eyes of others, existed around Selena. The 3 intermediate spirits weren't afraid of Roger, like the other low-rank spirits. The intermediate spirits that were only visible to her were rather curious about the appearance of other lower spirits. What do you think? Oh? That's true. The intermediate and higher spirits who contracted with me are quiet. Selena's eyes glittered as she discovered something new. It's more amazing than that. I've never seen low-level spirits be afraid of anyone. Selena closed her face and Roger pulled his upper body back slightly. There are many kinds of people in the world. I'm sorry. I wish Ms. Roger had also been friendly with her spirits. That's all right, Selena. Is it okay for you to lose this much time with me? The students are waiting. Yes? Ah. What was I thinking in the middle of a test? Thanks, Mr. Roger. Don't mention it. Seeing her hurriedly approaching the students and arranging contracts with their spirits, Roger sighed in relief. It passed like this because it was Selena, but if it was someone else, he might have questioned. I'm glad I didn't run out of magic. Roger was fully aware that the spirits were afraid of him, but it was not exactly him that the low-level spirits were afraid of, but something else that was behind him. I still have a lot of magical power now, so I don't think the intermediate spirits saw it. But when he consumes a lot of his magic and if the noise resonates in his head, the intermediate spirits will respond. Otherwise, it would have been hard to even explain to Selena. Even in my condition, the lower spirits are aware of it. Ironically, being the weakest being, they are aware of this strange power. Far away from the students, Roger chewed and swallowed a magic potion to avoid being caught by others. Roger's gaze turned to Selena, who praised the student who had just successfully signed a contract with a spirit. She was genuinely delighted with her student's success as if it were her own. More than that, did Selena only contracted intermediate spirits? First of all, she is known to have a total of 3 intermediate spirits. Intermediate spirits of water, intermediate spirits of wind, and intermediate spirits of the earth, respectively. That was definitely a great skill, but to become a teacher at Theon, she should have one more thing she is confident in besides that. Roger thought so, and narrowed his eyes at a sudden strange sensation. Sight. Roger rolled his eyes, and followed the owner of the gaze that was directed in this direction. Where is it? First of all, it was not the students. The direction of the gaze was among the dense trees, but it was hard to guess the exact direction, as if a fog had spread around. Is it a spirit? Low-level spirits fear him and are reluctant to even come near him, and intermediate spirits roam only around Selena. The strange heat felt with the gaze. He must be quite powerful. Yes, this is definitely the spirit of fire. Just being a little interested in it is enough to affect the temperature of the surrounding atmosphere. It's at least an advanced spirit. When compared with wizards, they exert at least the power of the 5th rank. Especially in the case of strong individuals, up to the 6th rank is possible. Above all, the gaze is full of vigilance. There's no way a superior spirit would appear in a place like this, because it's the entrance to the fantasy forest. Besides, this is literally a forest. Spirits living in the forest are basically spirits of plants, light, water, wind, and land. Fire spirits were often seen in hot places, mainly in volcanic areas and deserts. But in this forest, even in the outskirts, an advanced fire spirit appeared. Other students didn't seem to be aware of its existence. Neither did Selena, who is very sensitive to spirits. He is not a guy that exists in a natural state. Someone artificially beckons him. From the gaze facing this direction, I can even feel the intention of criticizing what kind of person I am. Indeed, is he trying to confirm whether I'm really a threat because I'm feared by the spirits? It was a little annoying for Roger, but he didn't mean to make it obvious in the current situation. Is there someone else in this forest who commands spirits? Or is someone hidden among the students controlling the spirit? He wasn't sure yet, but if he shows his strength to identify the spirit of flame, he will run away immediately. For now, he had no choice but to let it act as it pleases. A person who commands higher spirits while hiding his identity. A spirit studies teacher in charge of senior students? The chances were extremely low. Rather, there is only one being who could do that, a First Order. A member of the Black Dawn Society hidden in Theon. Him or her, student or teacher, an existence that has not even been identified yet, since unlike other Black Dawn members, it is the only one who may notice his strangeness. I don't know why he's suddenly looking at me like this. Or is it some kind of signal? If so, how do you react here? If he reacts explicitly, it can be counterproductive. The opponent is a First Order of the Black Dawn Society. As an executive of a secret organization, he will be careful when contacting an executive of the same rank. If so, what should he do? Roger opened his mouth, just in case. It's a little hot. A spontaneous murmur to oneself, it's nothing more than a normal reaction. However, the meaning was clearly conveyed to the person staring at this side. There's a response. The source was not something that even Roger could do. It can't be removed, and it's not something that can be ignored. On the contrary, if he doesn't maintain his mana all the time, that source would try to encroach on him. It was for this reason that he kept taking magic pills on a regular basis, to keep his magic power to the maximum. There are a total of 3 restrictions, so only the low-level spirits respond. It's just a prediction, but higher-grade spirits will respond if 2 or all 3 are lifted. It wasn't much of a pleasure for Roger either. Even if only 1 restriction is lifted, Roger would hear the tiresome noises in his head. If 2 are lifted, he would feel their touch. And for the last restriction, his teacher told him not to lift it even if he dies, so it's hard to even imagine what will happen. How did this happen? Suddenly, he remembered what his mother said in his previous life. All sorts of beings are watching you. He didn't believe it at the time, but he's been aware of it every day since he came here. So he was annoyed because he kept remembering memories that he doesn't want to recall. At that moment a small spark ignited in front of Roger's eyes and eventually turned into letters. Roger was not surprised at the sight since he had already finished preparing his mind and calmly scanned the letters engraved with fireworks with his eyes. What's so frustrating is that the other side approached me first. 3 days later. After school hours. Here again. The First Order, which he had been looking for so much, attempted to contact him first. One more chapter in a few hours. For students, exams are often viewed as annoying events. In the midst of extreme tension, they burn their competitive spirit towards each other and they're exhausted both mentally and physically. However, just as the rain at the end of the drought was sweet, the sense of freedom that came when the 3-day test was completely over was indescribable. Wow. It's finally over. Oh, I've had a hard time for 3 days. The freshmen who just entered Theon were very happy that they finished their first test, and even the senior students felt a sense of freedom after the test was over. Hey, how was your test this time? Don't mention it. I think I'm screwed. I hope my ranking is at least in the middle. What are you talking about? The lower ranks will be close. Of course, the main concern of the students gathering around the school was the test results. How was the test, who did well, and which teacher's test was the easiest and most comfortable? If they knew which teacher's test is reasonable, next semester will be aimed at completing the said teacher class. Curses are not my cup of tea. I think I'm more suited to discharging magic. Next time, I'll focus on alchemy. Students who have passed the first test will now have a sense of urgency. Do they choose a class with a bang or a honey class? Mr. Merida's test was good this time. It's a theoretical part of drug manufacturing, and it was detailed. Teacher Selena's test was very simple. If you connect with the spirit and sign a contract, you will definitely get a pass. Hey, that's limited to students who met basic requirements for taking the spirit studies class. People with low affinity can't do it. They'll just choose golem studies or something similar. I heard that certain maniacs are so good at golem studies that it's hard to get in the top ranks. Don't mention it. There are so many people who are wearing glasses and just mumbling about the parts. There was a hot topic that came to mind among students while they were discussing this subject. Did you hear the news? I mean, Mr. Roger Kellisai test. Yeah, I heard it was really hard. It's not just that it's hard, but I heard people couldn't solve it properly even though it was an open book test. Wow. Then was there something behind the scenes? No, people said it was hard but rational. Anyway, it felt like that. In addition, the questions were given exactly from what they were taught. Doesn't Mr. Roger teach manifestation? It overlaps with Mr. Chris Benamore. Originally, Chris Benamore, who is in charge of the first grade, and Roger Kellisai, who is in charge of the second grade, never bumped into each other. However, as Roger accepted to teach first graders, the two could not avoid comparison. How was Mr. Chris' exam? Don't ask. We were tested in areas that were not taught. Really? I heard it's a course that you can only learn if you're in the 3rd grade or older, and I just made a hard bet. It was ridiculous, really. Wow, that's crazy. Don't even mention it. The test papers are full of jargon I've never seen before. You have to be able to use it even if you try to get a partial score. I really regret it. I should have just taken Mr. Roger's class. Did you take Mr. Roger's class? Yeah. I was really lucky. Someone complimented me a lot on Akashic Records, so I just chose it half-heartedly, and it was awesome. Hey, will Mr. Roger teach you the source code magic if you're in the top ranks? If you consistently finish in the top 5, you'll learn complete source code magic. I envy you. At least you still have an award that motivates you, we don't even have that. What should we commoners do in this situation? Chris Benamore's class was authoritarian, dismissive and contemptuous of the common people, so was not very popular with the students. With the exception of a certain few students who benefit from him, Chris' class is of the kind that is both terribly difficult and irritating. For students who took the class because of their high grades, they had no choice but to sigh every day in a class that was completely different from what they imagined. I will definitely take Roger's class next semester. That's not going to be easy. Why? There are a lot of competitors. They would all stand in line to attend Mr. Rudger's class. He even rarely selects assistant teachers, unlike other teachers. Really? I have to take the manifestation class next semester. How do I do it? You have to figure it out. In a large office decorated with ornate ornaments, Chris Benamor checked the questionnaire in his hand and soon twisted his face ferociously. Rudger Kellisai. Chris Benamor didn't know how to cool off his anger when he saw the test questions that Rudger had given this time. Mr. Chris. You did a great job giving the test questions. Here, take this. Elisa Willow, the president, suddenly appeared and gave him a test paper, but before he could ask what it was, Alicia smiled at him. Chris, you're in charge of manifestation class, right? That's why I'm giving it to you, because I think it'll be helpful for the next exam. You don't have to say thank you. Chris Benamor immediately recognized what the test questions the president handed him were, or, to be exact, whose. Rudger Kellisai. It was the questions that the hateful man gave in the first test. Rather than wondering why it was given to him, his eyes were faster to scan the contents. Chris Benamor is also a wizard who explores the truth. It was natural to wonder what questions a teacher other than himself asked. Chris Benamor, who looked through all 20 questions in 10 minutes, was forced to crumple the test paper with strength in his hands. Damn it. He realized why the president handed him the test paper. Do you want me to emulate the exam questions that Rudger Kellisai gave? How can he not know the intentions contained in the president's words? This is a test paper that was handed out openly to refer to it. From the fact that it wasn't just a test paper made by an old teacher, but a new teacher who was appointed at the same time as him, it was obviously the president's insidious intention to blatantly check their side, which favors aristocratic students. Damn it. Why do I, the eldest son of the Benamors, have to suffer like this? Chris gnashed his teeth, unable to contain his anger. He grew up as an aristocrat, learned magic, and was an elite of the empire. He even became a teacher at Thean Academy, a top educational institution that fosters wizards responsible for the continent's future. There was a family behind him, but he would not have been able to come this far if his skills were not good enough. Chris was proud of his accomplishments. He was convinced that he would be one of the pillars of the era, but the blatant comparison with someone else was an unbearable act for him, whose pride was soaring in the sky. No, he was okay with the comparison, but he was upset that the results were not what he wanted. You're comparing a fallen aristocrat to me? The president's tone even seems to say that he was clearly below Rudger. If she wasn't a higher-ranking wizard than himself, Chris would have been spoken back. But most of all, it was Rudger's test that made Chris Benamor angry. He didn't want to admit it, but the problems Rudger created were of a very high level. Is this a problem created by a fallen aristocrat? He was really angry for another reason. As soon as he saw the problem of Rudger Kellisai, who had ignored and looked down on it, he admitted it to himself without realizing it. The fact that he recognized the person who was supposed to be under his feet, not anyone else, left a big scar on Chris' pride. Rudger Kellisai. Chris Benamor chewed out his name. He didn't like him from the first time he met him, and after the bet they made under the pretext of the students' duel, he hated Rudger more than anyone else in the world. I'll make sure you'll pay for this humiliation. Chris was thinking of the Magic Festival day when he was going to defeat Rudger in front of everyone. To do so, he had to find his weakness, so Chris Benamor communicated with his family through a magic crystal ball. It's me. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Renee walked down the street with her lunchbox. Originally, he had to eat with Arender after the test, but Arender, who ruined the test, became depressed and left her alone. I hope you get well soon. She was worried about Arender, and since her exam was over, she thought that she could relax a little, but she met the aristocratic gang, whom she did not want to meet. So there Moreover, the other party immediately recognized her and smiled. There were 2 men and 2 women, and she didn't especially want to meet the rogue-looking man with drab blonde hair. Santilli Oatmouth is the descendant of a count, and he has been vindictive since he confessed to her a while ago and was rejected. Who is this? A commoner who lives with a very proud and noble taste, right? Oh, what? You're not going to accept my greeting? I'm disappointed. Instead of answering, Line tried to avoid the gang, but Santilli blocked her way. Please get out of my way. What? I can't hear you well. Are you still holding a grudge for having confessed back then? You are so narrow-minded and don't deserve to be an aristocrat. Renee also responded harshly. In the first place, she wasn't the type to bow down. She got into a fight with Dinah Romley on the training ground for actually saying what she had to say. You. When Renee revealed his dark history, Santilli grimly face distorted. He glanced around. In the first place, this neighborhood is near an artificial park where few people come and go. Before long, a sadistic smile lingered on his face. Follow me. What? What is it? Let go of me. Santilli grabbed Renee by the wrist and dragged her into the park. Renee resisted desperately, but the difference in power couldn't be made up. In addition, other students with Santilli laughed, saying it was fun to see her in pain. Isn't it the job of the nobles to educate the cheeky commoners? What are you talking about? Santilli, who dragged Line to a place where no one else would come and pushed her. Line collapsed weakly on the floor, and the lunchbox in her hand rolled around on the floor. Her lunch, which had been kept inside, spilled on the floor. Renee raised her eyes at Santilli. Do you know what you've done now? Wow, look at these eyes. Do you still not understand the situation you're in? Santilli expected Renee to beg in front of him, tremble and apologize. Contrary to his expectations, however, Renee glared at him venomously. Facing her unshakable eyes, Santilli felt as if he had become a loser. Suddenly, he was fascinated by her appearance and remembered when I was dumped. How dare you raise your eyes at me? She was a dirty commoner, but he treated her a little nice because she had a smooth appearance, and now she was arguing with him. That's why commoners need education. Santilli pulled a cane from his waist and aimed it at Renee. It was the moment when magic gathered on Santilli's staff. What are you doing? Santilli hurriedly turned his head at the sudden voice. There was a man with his arms folded and his shoulders leaning against a tree in the garden, pale-looking skin, sharp eyes, and dark blue hair. Santilli, a nobleman, recognized who he was at once. Sir Fruden Ulberg? Although he is a sophomore in Theon, he is the leader of the noble faction, a man who is both awe-inspiring and a symbol of fear. Sir, why are you here? That's strange. I asked a question first and I haven't heard the answer yet. Fruden's eyes went back and forth between Renee, who fell on the floor, and Santilli, who pointed a cane at her. I'll ask again. What are you doing? His voice was as cold as ever. Renee was just confused by the situation. It is true that she ran into Santilli's gang, was in danger, and she thought it would be good if someone could help. However, she did not expect that the one who would help her would be Fruden Ulberg, one of the 3 dukes of the empire. Even at a young age, he led a faction and stood tall on the heads of aristocratic students. Of course, Theon is full of geniuses and superhumans who solve everything on their own without being ruled by anyone, but that doesn't mean that the light of the name Fruden is fading. That Fruden was now staring at Santilli with cold eyes. Senior, you're really a scary person, as the rumors say. The rumors of Fruden were also popular among the common people. So, when she first encountered him, she was afraid and she was surprised to discover that he was an unexpectedly easygoing person. But now Renee realized that rumors about Fruden were never wrong or misleading, and the energy he exuded proved it. Why aren't you answering? Did I ask a difficult question? Santilli sensed the danger and hurriedly opened his mouth. I was just educating a cheeky commoner. Fruden's eyes turned to Renee. Ugh. Renee trembled involuntarily. She froze up, without even thinking of getting up from the ground. Come to think of it, it wasn't exactly a situation she would like to be in. The opponent was Fruden Ulberg, leader of the aristocratic students in Theon, and she is just a commoner. Between Santilli and her, it was obvious who Fruden was going to turn to. So. Fruden, who understood the whole situation, opened his mouth. Are you saying that the 4 of us are educating one commoner? Yeah. You. What's your name? It's Santilli Oatmouth. Oatmouth, Is it the Earl of Oatmouth? I think I vaguely heard him. He never heard of a count's family? Even Santilli, who was likely to feel insulted, accepted the fact as if it was natural, because Fruden's someone who's in a position where he can do that. So, the son of the Oatmouth family along with 3 others is in such a remote place bullying a commoner girl? What do you mean bully? One of the girls from Santilli group made an excuse in haste. That's not true. We're just educating her. Yes, I was just trying to educate her. That's education? Yes, yes. Fruden was popular with young women not only because he was the head of the aristocratic faction, but also because of his beautiful appearance. Therefore, the two girls who were with Santilli desperately made excuses to look good in front of Fruden without knowing that their actions were irritating him. It's the common girl's fault. She dared to stand in front of the nobles and ignore us. That's right. We were just trying to lecture such a cheeky commoner. At some point, Fruden frowned at the four people who started to talk, believing that their actions were justice. Noisy. Mr. Fruden? Not just noisy, it's disgusting. Yes, yes? The four didn't understand why Fruden was so hostile to them. Why is he staring at them like that? They were just punishing a commoner. Why is he so angry? Come to think of it, why was Freudian here? Mr. Fruden. Is it because we interrupted Mr. Fruden's rest? They thought he was angry because they were interrupting his resting time. However, Santilli made a big mistake. You really don't know? What? What do you mean we don't know? No way. Because we're doing something about a commoner girl? Ha, ha, ha. No way. That didn't make sense, and Santilli laughed senselessly. That Fruden-Ulberg was worried about the commoner girl and got angry at this situation? Santilli figured that Fruden must have felt bad because they showed a dirty commoner in front of him and nodded his head in a wild guess. I'm sorry to interrupt your break. I'll take care of it in a quiet place right away. You really don't seem to understand me. Do you still not know why I'm angry? What? If it's not. I can't believe it. Fruden clicked his tongue and let go of his hands. I can't do this. What? What's? When Santilli was about to ask something, the atmosphere became several times heavier, and pressed his body from top to bottom. Santilli fell flat on the floor and looked like a frog. Fruden looked down at Santilli, who was lying face down on the ground and couldn't even raise his head. Mr. Fruden. What are you doing? Santilli's friend stepped up and asked. However, his protest was extinguished as easily as a candle in the wind when he faced Fruden's gaze. Fruden's gaze went beyond him and reached the two noble girls who were observing the situation from behind. The noble girls trembled at the feeling of their skin getting cold. You still don't know why I'm doing this? Yes, yes? We do not know why Mr. Fruden is doing this. That's enough. It's not worth it. Fruden released his crushing magic and barely free from the pressure, Santilli gasped and rose, his face covered with dirt. His gaze toward Fruden was a mixture of anger, embarrassment and fear. Leave the child and go. Are you defending the commoners, Mr. Fruden? Commoners? That's funny. Fruden rolled up the corner of his mouth and laughed. I just didn't want to see the garbage that wasn't aristocratic. Why? Are you angry because you suddenly got into a rough situation? Oh, no. Santilli bowed his head immediately. Even if he is the son of a count, his opponent is the son of a duke. Besides, he felt how strong Fruden was when he was under his spell a moment ago. There was no sign of the magic manifestation process, and he was beaten without knowing how. He was angry, but also afraid of him. Go away. I won't say it again. Fruden hated repeating the same thing. Seeing Santilli and his lackeys running away like defeated soldiers, Renee could not close her slightly open mouth, and could only watch the scene. Fruden sighed and approached Renee when Santilli's group completely disappeared. Line finally came to her senses. Sunbay? Get up. Fruden said and held out his hand to Renee. Line looked at his face and hands alternately, and soon stretched on her own. Freudian shrugged his shoulders and put his hands away, and Renee bowed. Thank you for your help. I just did what I had to do. Well, then I'll go. Renee said and sighed as she looked at her lunchbox lying on the floor. I'm having a hard time with the textbook costs these days, and I can't believe the rice I barely prepared is now on the ground. Was it lunch? It was. That'll be hard to eat. What are you going to do? No. It's okay. But the potatoes can be eaten if I shake off some dirt. It fell to the ground. Line also smiled awkwardly and covered it up. Hee. I'm just kidding. I should just skip lunch. That's great. It's perfect if you think about dieting. There seems to be nowhere else to lose. Thank you for the compliment. Renee smiled bitterly. She was very grateful that Fruden adjusted his mood. After a brief look at Renee, Fruden turned around and said, "Follow me." "What?" "I was going to have lunch just now." If it's lunch, are you eating here, Mr. Fruden?" "I like to eat in a quiet place." "Oh, in that garden?" "Yes, and I basically pack my own meals." "What?" Renee, at a loss, thought it was already spilled water and followed in Fruden's footsteps. The place she followed him to was the small garden she had visited before. Come to think of it, it was close to the garden where Santilli forced her. Maybe that's why Fruden heard the fuss and came to check. Here it is. Fruden grabbed a small bundle on one side of the vacant lot. Inside of it was a luxurious lunchbox, but the inner contents were more impressive than the exterior. It was full of luxurious dishes that she couldn't imagine, and it was decorated nicely, so just looking at it made her mouth water. "Is this your lunch?" "Yeah, let's share it, if you don't mind." "What?" "I don't think I can finish it all by myself." I got excited and made too much. "What?" Renee had no choice but to be surprised when she heard that Fruden made his own lunch. "No way. Did you make all of these?" "Yeah, family cooks are not reliable. I've read books since I was 7 years old, and I've always cooked and eaten my meals." "Since you were 7 years old?" Rene's head felt dizzy. What did she do at that age? Renee tried to recall the past, but nothing came to mind because she was an orphan with no parents and no home in the first place. When she came to her senses, she had been growing up in a church, and when she grew up, she got noticed by a strange wizard, learned a variety of magic, and thanks to the preferential treatment system she was admitted to Theon. "Try it." "Can I really do that?" "Hurry." "Oh, yes." It was hard to bear the hunger to say no, so Renee nodded because it seemed like it was not polite to refuse Fruden. And as soon as she picked up a piece of meat with a prepared fork, Renee opened her eyes wide at the feast of flavors exploding in her mouth. "Oh, my God. It's so good." She has a low appetite, so she eats almost anything, but it wasn't to the point where she couldn't tell the difference between the elaborate dishes. Renee came to realize how great Fruden was. He has a nice family, and he looks great. He's an aristocrat who even knows how to do housework. He's like the main character of a romance novel that's very popular among young people these days. Renee wondered why such a person took such good care of her. Perhaps? Renee, who had expectations, shook her head. "I'm sure he just thinks that I'm a good person. Let's just eat." Eating something delicious washed away all the bad things that happened a while ago. Fruden stared silently at Renee while she was eating. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Night fell. Street lamps, which were turned on by magic, brightly lit the road, and lights that had not yet been turned off from several buildings leaked out through the windows. I walked in darkness where even such a light could not reach, to the entrance of the fantasy forest, because we promised to meet here. You haven't come yet. At that time, Selena came to this place so that the students could make a contract with the spirits, but no presence was felt around him now. Occasionally, spirits shining faintly in the dark appeared, but when they saw him, they were surprised and ran away. Today he will encounter a first order for the first time, and he wondered what kind of person he was and if his identity would be seen through. "You came early." A voice came from the darkness. At the same time, flames fluttered in the air, and soon it turned into a ball of fire the size of a human fist. I stared at the flame with a subdued gaze. TL note, I don't know how I do it, but I always end up with a cliffhanger. Sorry for the cliff. I'll try to release some chapter tomorrow. One more chapter later. I'm looking forward to meeting the First Order. Rudger, who confirmed that the opponent appeared only as a flame without showing up, had no choice but to bite his tongue inwardly. You don't reveal yourself, but we meet like this. In fact, it was not a situation that he didn't expect. A First Order will have to carefully hide its identity and not be exposed. Considering the way he was signaled to meet, he vaguely expected something like this. You're late. Whatever the case, the owner of the flame in front of him is a First Order. Even if he doesn't know its true identity, he shouldn't show his disappointment. At this moment when they face each other and talk, if he let his guard down even a little bit, the other party might be suspicious of his identity. There's no such thing as regret. Roger immediately washed away his miscellaneous thoughts. Even if they don't meet in person, there are plenty of ways to get to know the other person. A word that they say without any intention can be a great clue. I didn't know you would be here so early. The answer came back in a slightly hoarse voice. Although the flames were fluttering and the voice reverberated, it was easy to tell that the subject was a woman. He didn't think that voice was used to deceive him. His opponent must be aware that he is Roger Kelisai, the First Order, and she wouldn't use such a troublesome way. So what did you call me for? Roger said, trying to figure out the opponent's intention. The John Doe that he is impersonating right now is a very relentless and merciless human being, even when it comes to members from the Black Dawn Society. He's always annoyed and angry, and even kills them if he's too annoyed. Nevertheless, he maintained his First Order position because he was capable and Zero Order thought highly of him, but there is no guarantee that it will be the same for the others' First Orders. Would this, John Doe, character behave as usual to the other First Orders? Adding unnecessary words could have made him reveal who he really is, so he must be careful with whatever he says now. Was Roger's question unexpected? A surprised voice came from the flame. What's wrong? You're less angry than I thought. You used to try to tear me apart. It's just a matter of time and place. If I get angry in a place like this, is there any advantage besides getting caught? Oh. That's definitely true, too. You're a teacher of Theon now. I'm very busy right now. I don't know why you called me, but I'll go back if you have nothing more to say. With that said, Roger turned his back. Of course, it is not right to leave as he has not yet fully figured out who his opponent is. However, a detailed review of the situation changes the story. In the first place, it was the flame in front of him, the other First Order, that asked for this meeting. Since the other party wants something from him, he can leave without worries, because the other party will try to stop him. Wait. Indeed, as he expected, the flame stopped him. Roger stopped walking, but he didn't look back. He'll listen for now, but it means he's not fully committed and the opponent didn't know that. Okay. Sorry, I'm late. I made an appointment first, but I offended you because I was just joking around. Just get to the point. Phew. You're still hard and cold. Anyway, I called you like this because I need help. Only then did Roger look back. Help? You? I wouldn't normally do it, but this is Theon and I can't do things my way. Do things your way. If you say that with your own mouth, it means that what you've been doing before was pretty glamorous. You seem pretty impatient. My Second Order disappeared recently. It's because of the Almighty Stone. Yes, that's it. They tried to take matters into their own hands, but they completely screwed it up. Just thinking about what happened at that time made the flames stronger. The heat reached Roger, but he kept a casual look on his face and the flame, which grew bigger, returned to its original size. But they're all dead. Right. Who knew the president would kill them all? It's even. It was a trap. What? You know everything? How can he not know that? If he had not left right away, he would have been swept away by the president's magic. Of course he can't be honest about it, so he'll just answer in a sloppy way. There's no way I won't know. As expected, of John Doe. Come to think of it, that was your role. Disguise yourself and hide in the enemy's camp to win the admiration of others and steal information. Your skills didn't die. That's enough nonsense. At Roger's reaction, the flame, which was expanding playfully, became slightly withered. Surprisingly, she is a chatterbox. Anyway, I lost a subordinate that I thought was useful, so my plan was disrupted. It's a plan that's left to be carried out right away. Because you treated such a person as a subordinate, you ended up like that. Roger said, giving his opponent a hard time. The flame remained silent because there was nothing to refute. Well, I'm in a different field than you. You just do things quietly on your own, but I can't do it. What is that silence? That's why you're not popular even among our First Orders. Because I don't get along with anyone. I just didn't feel the need. Huh. So funny. You're so handsome and you've always been loyal to Zero Order. You're the only one who's good, right? Getting a lot of love from Zero? Noisy. So what do you want help with? Will you help me? Let's hear it first. At Rudger's words, the opponent seemed dissatisfied and the flames were shaking. However, from their conversation, Rudger was convinced that he was in control. The Second Order, who died during the Almighty Stone incident, was her subordinate, and because her immediate subordinate disappeared, it caused a major setback in her future plans. However, it would be impossible to use another Second Order and a Third Order. It's not good enough. One thing Rudger knew for sure while playing Sedina was that the Black Dawn Society consists of 7 First Orders along with the Second and Third Orders under them, which naturally divides the faction inside. Perhaps the Second Order, who died trying to steal the Almighty Stone this time, is most likely her subordinate. Did he say his name was Demirs? Even if he was a master of his own will, he must have been a competent subordinate. With such a man dead, the plan she had made must be completely blank. However, calling another Second Order will inevitably lead to hesitation because their faction is different. If she uses the Second Order of the opposing faction, she will show another First Order her weakness. I see. That's why you asked me for help. Unlike other First Orders, Rudger Kelesai acted alone, and he wasn't part of any faction. Those without factions were neutral. You know, my specialty is setting fire, but no matter how much I set fire in Theon, the wizards quickly extinguish the fire. It's an environment where I can't use my talents well. Yes. In Theon, both teachers and students can use magic. Since the place is full of elites, any fire can be easily extinguished. Above all, there is no way that there is no preparation for a fire in Theon, where all kinds of things happen with the use of magic. In particular, it should have been considered impossible to set a fire in Theon, since strict preparations were made. Nevertheless, she did not give up. She's capable enough to set a fire, I guess. She could not have become an executive of the Black Dawn Society for no reason. My role is focused on destruction, but the defense here is solid. That doesn't mean I can't do anything. If you make the preparations, I can burn more brightly than anyone else. Are you asking me to prepare for that? I'd appreciate it if you did. If you help me, I will also give you the corresponding help. It's kind of a deal and a promise. Whose deal is it with? Of course, it's John Doe's deal with Esmeralda. Rudger found out the name of the person who made the fire in front of him. I don't know if it's a code name like John Doe or a real name. In the case of John Doe, he completely concealed his identity and called himself by a code name, but Esmeralda likely didn't just like Victor Dreadful. John Doe was an unusual case, and I didn't think the rest would. Hey, do you have to check like this to make your stomach feel better? It's better to make a deal clear. Rudger said calmly, so as not to be caught rejoicing. I told you honestly, and now it's your turn to answer. Do you accept my offer? I refuse. What? There's nothing I can do for you in my situation. Wait. Are you really going to do this after listening to everything? The flames burned more strongly as if they were expressing anger, but Rudger stared at the flames with a blank face and no sign of fear. Are you asking because you don't know my position? I'm a teacher of Theon. Even if it's nominal, it's not an easy place to move. If you're good enough, you can do it. You always try as hard as you can to hide yourself. It's just annoying, so can you do more than make an excuse? I would normally have, but not now. Why? The president is still suspicious of me. Esmeralda could not argue more and shut up when the president was mentioned. You really can't? Even though it's a job that would put me in debt? Yes. There's nothing we can do. Then we have to pick the right person. When she clearly drew her line, Esmeralda took a step back, fearing that hanging on to me would hurt her self-esteem. But keep this in mind. If this is successful, it will help our Black Dawn Society a lot and you kicked the chance. Everyone has their own thing to do. Just because I don't help you doesn't mean I'm not loyal to the organization. You talk annoyingly as well. Anyway, I'll take care of it myself. I was grateful that she would give up on her own. However, Esmeralda kept complaining because she was angry that she was rejected. I was crazy to ask you for help. So what are you going to do in the future? Are you curious now? Even though the words were so blunt, she didn't hide anything. What am I supposed to do? As always, I'm doing what I'm good at. I see. Do your best. There was nothing more to be gained by asking more questions. Above all, he already figured out what he can find out, so this meeting was not without benefits for him. When Rudger was about to say goodbye and leave, Come to think of it, I heard some interesting news recently. What do you mean? Roger felt anxious at the sudden remark. Why was she suddenly talking about interesting news at this time? You said you had a subordinate. The word subordinate flashed Sedina Rosen across Roger's mind. I mean, that's weird. The John Doe who claimed to be comfortable alone has a subordinate? A third order, too? Esmeralda was suspicious and asked him. Roger pondered inside. Did Esmeralda just ask this question without thinking? No. This is obviously a questionable remark about him. If it's not an illusion, it feels like the temperature has risen a few degrees around him. No, it was actually going up. Tell me. What made you do that? The question was simple, but the hidden meaning was not simple. The scorching heat surged, and then it began to take shape. At first, it was as big as a fist, but it was already encroaching on his surroundings, overflowing with tentacles made of flames. Ordinary people would have stuttered in embarrassment, or felt that their life was in danger and reflexively counterattacked because it was more important to live somehow than to die. That's a natural response. But not like that. Roger suppressed his body, which was about to react on its own. Even though the rising heat bothered him, he stared silently at the flames without changing his breath. You talk as if you know me very well. What? Provocative remarks are nothing short of crazy in this situation. If anyone had watched this scene, they might have asked why, but Roger did not hesitate. There was no need to do that. You asked for help first, and then made your own conclusions. Do I seem weak because I stayed still after infiltrating Theon? Esmeralda took a step back at his remark. What? You did something you won't usually do in the first place. I always do my best, depending on my identity, and now I'm a new teacher of Theon, Roger Kelisai. What would it look like if such a teacher didn't have an assistant? So you choose a third order? I just decided that this is better than having a guy who doesn't know anything. I don't know why I'm trying to convince you. Roger was blatantly annoyed and said flatly that there was no need for explanation. Rather, if he tried to persuade her about why he acted like this in this situation, he could have raised doubts from the other party. The First Orders all had great skills, but at the same time, they were all out of their minds. John Doe, Victor Dreadful, whom he just indirectly encountered, and Esmeralda in front of him were all the same. Being calm and rational with them would backfire. It was better to act annoyed to clear the other party's doubts, and he made the right decision because the tentacles of the flame quickly melted into the air. Just kidding. I was just joking, but aren't you overreacting? Esmeralda, no matter what, it's clear that you're suspicious of my loyalty. Okay, I'm sorry. You're right. You didn't talk to anyone but Zero Order. Don't be angry, instead, I'll tell you a piece of good news. What's going on? Zero's Order will visit to check our condition soon. I'm serious. When the name Zero Order came out, Roger calmed down. I'll let it slide this time. However, keep this in mind. If you do something like this again. Roger opened his eyes sharply and glared at the flames. No, the Esmeralda hidden in them. Then one of us will have to die. Yes, yes. All right. She took him lightly as if she was not listening, but if Esmeralda was talking like that, it was clear that the threat worked. All right. Anyway, I'm done with the message, so I'm leaving. It's annoying to have a setback in the plan, but it can't be helped. Roger didn't respond to the monologue and left immediately. Esmeralda stared at the back of Roger for some time, but she lost interest quickly, and the flame disappeared. At the entrance of the fantasy forest, darkness fell again. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. I almost got in trouble. After leaving the fantasy forest, I wiped the cold sweat running down my forehead. My body was still tense, because I barely escaped the situation with desperate acting a while ago. I'm glad the other person stepped down, after pretending to be strong. That's how people in secret organizations in the underworld are. When you look weak or try to solve something with words, it looks ridiculous, especially in the eyes of executives. In such a situation, it is more effective to be aggressive. In fact, Esmeralda rolled up her tail and stepped back. Even so, it was dangerous. If I had any strange reaction there, she would have tried to kill me right away. At least until I got angry. Esmeralda's reaction was genuine, she was really going to kill me, but it's good that we didn't fight, otherwise it would have been dangerous. The president is looking for suspicious people and has her eyes on him. What would have happened if he would have fought at the entrance of the fantasy forest in the middle of the night? Considering Esmeralda's level, she's not someone that could be defeated easily. The flames she deals with seemed enough to burn the forest in an instant. Fortunately, nothing happened. It was fortunate that he knew John Doe's character in advance. Although he has a filthy personality and is unbending against the other First Orders, he swore allegiance to the Zero Order, the leader of the Black Dawn. Even after killing the lower orders of the Black Dawn, the reason he remained in place was perhaps because he was favored by Zero Order. I'm glad I didn't get caught. And I got a clue about the First Order, Esmeralda. First Order Esmeralda. Gender is female. Age is still difficult to guess, but for now, it was clear that she was young. But the most important thing is her ability. The flame she used a while ago and the heat that quickly expanded. I noticed it from the moment I first felt her presence in the fantasy forest, but Esmeralda was a spirit warrior, a powerful elementalist who wields a spirit of flame that is at least at the advanced level. The fact that she can send her voice through her spirit means the spirit is very capable. In that case, the number of suspects is reduced greatly. I can suspect people who specialize in spirits in the whole of Theon. The first thing I should suspect is the elemental studies teachers. From 1st grade to 5th grade, there are a total of 5 teachers. However, as far as their skills are concerned, they are all first class without any doubt. Considering that she's a First Order, it was very likely that she infiltrated Theon as a teacher. But that doesn't exclude the students. Rather, if you hide your identity, hiding among students, it's much more likely to go unnoticed. Even if it was limited to female students among the students who were in the spirit studies class, the number would be quite high. However, if I look around for fire spirits, the range will narrow enough to count them on my hand. She contacted me when I came to see the test in the fantasy forest. That means that someone who can move freely at that time or someone who was on the scene must likely be the First Order. The scope has been narrowed further. In the case of teachers, he can focus on those who did not give tests or did not go to work. However, he can't go to them one by one and ask them where and what they did that day. But it's not like there's no way out. The first test is over. Although there are 4 tests in a semester, the first test is of course meaningful. Theon gives small gifts to those who took the test for the first time, saying that they worked hard. Students are given a total of 3 days off, and the same is true of teachers. A welcoming party for new teachers, which should have been held at the entrance ceremony, will be held after the first test. Only after giving the first test and evaluating the students could one say that he took the first step as a teacher. The welcoming party held at the beginning of each year will be attended by all teachers of Theon, and outsiders who donate a huge amount of money to Theon will also come. It's kind of a banquet that's held in a large city near Theon, and since there's only one city near Theon, a banquet in Leathervelk. He was going to attend and find the First Order. And what Esmeralda said at the end. Zero Order, founder of the Black Dawn Society, will visit soon. Will Roger be able to fool him? Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Who? In a dark room, the Black Shadow let out a small sigh. It was Esmeralda who ended her meeting, John Doe. Great job. A small spark came to her side when she said so. It was small enough and looked cute, but with the power it contained and the true identity of the embers, no one would call it cute. The embers flickered a little, and then disappeared as if they were extinguished. Esmeralda got up and looked out her window. She is standing in a small research building, and beyond the window, Fantasy Forest, one of the 3 major forests of Theon, could be seen. It's a forest so huge that it's hard to see it at a glance, even inside Theon, and it's not completely clear what's inside. As she gazed carefully at the entrance to the forest, she saw someone slowly walking out. Esmeralda narrowed her eyes. Even with the mana-enhanced vision, only the shape could be vaguely recognized. John Doe. The man disappeared through the darkness, with leisurely steps. It seems that he is just walking normally, but he is assimilated with the surrounding landscape and cannot be seen properly. Indeed, he deserved to be called a First Order like her. You came here and did your best as a teacher without doing anything, so I wondered what you were thinking. She was anxious that he might have betrayed the organization, but she soon shook her head and shook off the idea. John Doe has the highest loyalty to the organization. Still, the reason she deliberately tested him is because he has drawn attention and his recent behavior has been excessive. I thought you'd be very quiet because you said you'd sneak in as a teacher, but it was unexpected. Esmeralda doesn't know exactly how John Doe handles things. She knew he specialized in disguise and infiltration, but everything else is a secret. However, considering that he has not failed in his duties so far, his skills must have been verified. He tested him to find out his skills, because the existence of John Doe is different compared to the other First Orders. Those eyes. Even with my flame right in front of his nose, he didn't feel scared at all. John Doe shot back rather strongly, even in a situation where he might been burned to death by the fire spirit she was controlling. He didn't have any fear at all. It wasn't a bluff, because he had enough power to respond to her attack. His attitude in the fantasy forest, as well as his new form of magic that Roger Kelisai showed, were new to her. John Doe is a wizard of considerable ability. Maybe he's stronger than I vaguely guessed. He said he was wary of the president, but she didn't know if that was true or he just wanted his acting to be perfect. She thought it was the latter. Indeed, she could see why Zero's order supported this man. He is loyal without forming factions, and has outstanding skills. It is understandable that John Doe infiltration played a major role. TSK. I tested him, but I couldn't find anything. She had to take care of herself before she cared about John Doe. Come to think of it, I heard there's a banquet this time. She thought that she had to attend and was annoyed. Esmeralda was not very fond of such formalities. I should still go. The main role will be played by someone other than her anyway. Recently, Renee has been experiencing a series of things that made her lose hair. The arguments with the aristocratic students, the setback in class because of her non-attribute magic, and the men who are interested in her and bother her. There were fun and happy things, but there were more things that she didn't like. It was the same now. Now that the first test was over, Thean students were taking a break to make the most of their few free classes. Some were already studying because their pride was hurt when they failed the test, but it was none of Rena's business. She seemed to have done well on this test, no matter how much she thought about it. I was going to take a break. The older students also agreed that it would be difficult to rest after this, so if she was going to rest, she should rest now. Renee agreed with them and tried to take a break. Why am I here? She lifted her slightly bowed head and looked at the man sitting comfortably opposite her. What's wrong? Fruden Ulberg asked if he felt her gaze. Looking at him again, he is a very handsome young man. The eldest son of Ulberg and the man who will be the next leader of the Duke family was sitting face to face with her now. They were also eating alone in a small vacant lot where people do not visit. How did this happen? Renee was dizzy from the splendid taste of the food in her mouth and the gap between them. Obviously, they've met and eaten like this before, but she thought it was just fruit and pity because her lunch fell on the floor. I thought this would never happen again after that. We just ran into each other on the street. At that time, she was looking for a place to eat while holding a lunchbox, thinking that she should be especially careful. However, she didn't really want to go to the student restaurant. She didn't have any friends to eat with, and going to a place where many people gather would attract too much attention. How could she eat peacefully when people are staring at her? In such a situation, the food she ate made her stomach feel stuffy. But isn't it too much to eat in the bathroom? She doesn't want the rumor that she doesn't have friends and eats alone in the bathroom to spread, that's why she came outside. Who knew she would run into Fruden here? Maybe he was on his way to eat, too, since he was moving alone with a lunch basket. Are you going to eat? What? Oh, yes. Let's eat together. There was no way she could refuse, so Renee eventually ended up eating with Fruden, and that's the situation right now. Looking back, it's a really fancy meal. Looking at the Fruden lunchbox, Renee realized how terrible the lunchbox she had packed was. As she's pressed for money, all she's going to eat is steamed potatoes and some vegetables. Her reality was that she could not even dream of meat. While she was depressed, meat was piled up on her lunchbox. Oh, senior? Eat more. What? Come to think of it, mine has too much meat. Fruden said so and concentrated on the meal again. Renee thought about whether to reject this or not, but she decided to eat it because she thought it would be a waste to throw it away. More than that, it's amazing. While eating the delicious meat, Renee had no choice but to wonder. I think Senior brought more food than before. Who was he trying to give it to? Maybe he made an appointment with someone, but he went with her instead because they met by coincidence. Is it good luck or bad luck? Renee decided not to dwell on it. It's delicious. It's been a while since she had meat. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. It was so awkward, but the delicious meal was over. Then, I'll go now. Fruden stood up saying that he had to take care of the garden. At least for this moment, he didn't seem to want to be disturbed by anyone, so she nodded her head saying she enjoyed the meal and left. I think Senior is a good person. She didn't think deeply about why Fruden was nice to her, she thought Fruden was just a good person. Because he didn't seem to have any bad intentions. He did not discriminate against her because she was commoner, and it was Fruden who even saved her when she was in danger. For some, Fruden may seem like a scary villain, but at least Renee didn't think so. She had a feeling that he was a good person. Renee had a special sense of recognizing the hostility or danger of others toward her. It's not magical, it's just a vague feeling, but she quite trusted this feeling of hers. In fact, this sense of hers was right almost every time. The atmosphere of those who approached her because they were attracted by her appearance and those who helped her with her pure good intentions were different. It was the same when I came to Theon. Jealousy, contempt, possessiveness, etc. All sorts of different emotions were directed at her, and Renee avoided them as much as possible. There was darkness behind the students who approached her and said they were the same commoners, and the aristocrats who approached with a friendly smile, so Renee didn't get along with other people carelessly because she couldn't. She knew what was behind their smiles, but Fruden was different, that's why Renee joined him and ate together. Otherwise she would have rejected his suggestion. There aren't many people like this, it's fascinating. Currently, there are only a handful of people who do not have any ill will toward Renee and Theon. Among them, if she had to pick a representative person, there was Fruden Ulberg, whom she had a meal with a while ago. There is also Senior Arender and the last thing that comes to mind is the figure of Rudger who gave her a book about non-attribute magic. Mr. Rudger Kalasai. Rudger's sharp gaze towards her seemed to be filled with dissatisfaction in everything, but Renee knew that he was not hostile towards her. Rather he had goodwill, that it was strangely different from others. He doesn't show his affection for her, but rather a slightly darker side. Renee felt that it was sorry or guilt. Why? She couldn't be sure, but it just looked like it. Oh, my. Renee rubbed her eyes with her hands. She didn't know if it was an illusion, but Renee felt itchy around her eyelids these days. A person stood silently in front of Renee, who rubbed her eyes like that and looked straight ahead again. She was so startled that she didn't even scream. The man in front of her smiled and greeted her, regardless of her condition. Hi, you're Renee, right? Oh, yes, but who are you? He was wearing the same student uniform as her, but looking at his name tag it said second grade. He was a handsome man with a big smile, and his slightly scarlet hair was tied in a tail. His slightly open squint seemed to be very nice, but Renee was under the impression that he was a little like a snake. That meant that he must have a motive to approach her, but Renee didn't run away because she didn't feel any hostility from him. Instead, she felt extreme curiosity from the man in front of her. I recently wondered what Fruden was doing alone. Oh, are you a friend of Senior Fruden? Senior? Was it unexpected that she called him Senior Fruden Senior without any hesitation? The squinty man opened his eyes slightly, and soon giggled. Yes, we're friends. My name is Henry Presto, a friend of Freudian. Nice to meet you. My name is Renee. Yes, I already know that. Oh. Don't look so wary. I was just amazed that my friend Fruden, who has always been lonely, packed a lunchbox and moved to meet someone in person on a holiday. Have you two met before? Well, how do you? I have my ways. Renee realized that Henry was an extraordinary man. He doesn't have any hostility towards her, but she was sure that he is dangerous. He knows things that other people don't know. Haha. You don't have to be so wary. Yes. Even if he said that, Renee stared at him with a disapproving gaze. Henry scratched his cheek with a smile, thinking he had made a mistake from the beginning. Well, am I being suspected? Then, I will give you good information as an apology. Good information? Yes, good information. You're having a hard time these days, aren't you? What? Line reacted and regretted it later. She had to pretend she didn't, but he was so right on the point that she revealed it. It's not. Everyone is the same. Other students need money, so they work a lot of part-time jobs here and there or go to the commission board and get a commission. But, to be honest, accepting a request is cumbersome, and you can't tell which is dangerous and which is not. So, the most stable thing is to make a living by doing chores inside Theon. That's true. In fact, Lynn was recently looking for a bunch of people to make money. I know a lot about the things that are convenient and make a lot of money. Honey, information that other students do not know. I can tell you that. Aren't you a senior? Yes, I am, but I know a lot about how things work in Theon. What do you think? Renee was quite suspicious of Henry's sudden offer. Normally, she wouldn't have listened to it, but things were different now, because she was actually really short of money. Henry's offer came at the right time, moreover, he had no hostility towards her. Why are you telling me this? We met for the first time today. To be honest, is it because of curiosity? Curiosity? It was amazing that Fruden had a meal with a commoner girl. Is that amazing? I think it's because the senior is a good person. Who's good? Freudian? Ha 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 ha. Henry laughed out loud as if he had heard something funny. Why are you laughing? Oh, yeah, that's right. Fruden is a good man. That's how I felt after watching Fruden for a long time. Anyway, so I'm kind of interested in you. Why does the word interest make my heart flutter instead of pounding in my chest? So I'm going to help. It won't be bad for you either. If you listen to what's going on, you'll be tempted too. The work is easy, and the pay is high. The pay is high? Line's ears pricked and moved. What do you think? Are you interested? Let's hear it first. You will not regret it. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. A large banquet hall. One by one, guests entered the banquet hall where beautiful light flowed out. All of them were high-ranking people dressed in luxurious clothes. Hey, isn't this Senator Thomas? Oh, Count Gerald, long time no see. You're still alive. Ha ha. How could I possibly miss this? Inside the colorful and clean banquet hall, well-dressed people gathered to chat. Wow. Classical music, a chandelier sparkling in vermilion along with the polished marble floor to the dining table around made Renee express her admiration on the inside. It was the first time in her life that she had come to such a place. The reason why she came here was simple. It was all thanks to Henry's recommendation. He said, I just heard of a part-time job where you only need to carry plates at a party. But how in the world was this a party? But this is way beyond common sense. This kind of job is so uncomfortable. Renee swallowed the complaint inwardly. She feels like she's been tricked by Henry. Still, the pay is great. Whatever it is, there's really not much to do, and it's a simple part-time job where you just have to stand still. In fact, there were several other students of Theon besides her. What kind of party is being held here? It may not be once or twice that the upper class of society is having parties, but Line guessed that this party was not a usual one. The door of the banquet hall opened and new guests came in. Oh, the main characters are finally here. Are they the newly appointed teachers? Following the crowd's gaze, Line turned and looked at the entrance. Familiar faces were seen through the wide-open door. Oh, it's teacher Selena. Dressed in an unusually colorful dress, she was entering the banquet hall with a face full of pressure. Next to her, teacher Merida escorts her in a purple dress with a deep back. In addition, other teachers appeared one by one. There was Chris Benamore and teacher Bruno, all of them were new teachers. Oh? Then. Rena's eyes naturally headed for the entrance of the banquet hall, which was wide open. There was one person who hadn't come yet. Thump. The sound of shoes knocking on the marble floor passed through the banquet hall. It's not just an illusion that the normal steps sound unusually loud only when people are buried in their own noise. There is a moment of silence in the banquet hall. Even the soft sound of the instruments remained silent for a moment. All eyes turned to the entrance. Whoa. There was a man coming into the banquet hall. He was wearing a long black tailcoat tailored to the dress code, a black coat over his shoulder, and held a cane in one hand. Unlike usual, his bangs were neatly pulled back. Roger Kellisai. The man who received everyone's attention glanced over the banquet hall with an emotionless look. As he entered the banquet held to celebrate the appointment of Theon's new teacher, gazes flew over him like arrows. There are a lot of people. I was embarrassed for a moment because the eyes were full of burdensome attention, but I kept my calm appearance and headed inside. Rather, when it comes to banquet halls, don't they usually play music to maintain a soft atmosphere? Why are they staying still? Hasn't the party started yet? With that in mind, I leaned my back against one of the walls to get a full view of the banquet hall. In an instant, the stop time began to flow again. The people who were talking to each other continued the conversation from a while ago, and some of them rolled their eyes and burst into laughter as if they were having fun. However, the basis of such behavior was full of pretense that was hard to hide. I can even feel the illusion that it flows out and spreads around like a black fog. They're not talking to each other, they're watching someone else. Especially me. If I said this, I might seem paranoid, but there's no way that I, who is sensitive to such gazes, would not know. Most of the people were either looking sideways at me, or glaring at me. I could fully guess why. This banquet is held with the purpose of making relationships. Theon's new teachers are young and have excellent magical skills, so they think that it would be good to make a relationship with them, even a little. Indeed, as I was watching, the people in the banquet hall began to move. "Oh, Miss Alina. Good to meet you. I'm a member of the House of Representatives, Charles. Are you Ms. Marilda? My name is Walt Miller, a director of a magic potion manufacturing company. Are you interested? Oh. Count Crispinamore. As rumored, you are really handsome." I checked the faces of the people in this banquet hall. All of them were rich and noble people, city councilors, aristocrats, wealthy businessmen, etc. All of them are Theon supporters. Theon needs a huge budget for operations like magic research, class materials, special materials, all kinds of infrastructure, etc. Considering the cost of raising a single wizard, the amount of money spent at the academy that trains a large number of elite wizards every year is bound to be astronomical. My starting salary as a new teacher right now made my mouth water. Considering other miscellaneous expenses, it would be difficult to imagine the detailed amount. It is difficult for the Theon Academy to cover the money on its own. Theon is not an international bank, and money cannot be printed and distributed like a factory. In order to invest a huge amount of money, it is inevitable to receive external support, and all the people here smell of money. There are people who need money and people with money but who want to get something more, and in this hall transactions that benefit both parties are made. That's why Theon belongs to the Empire, but it is not purely part of the Empire. All kinds of countries have invested in Theon. Not only the Exilian Empire, but also Dalek, Chaoten, Utah, Bredis, Fatima, etc. And even the huge capitalists without borders, regardless of country. It wouldn't be unusual for them to put a face stamp on talented people who might make a name for themselves in the future. This is a kind of annual event that is held to the point that it is tiresome to ask why. It is a place to build personal connections under the pretext of congratulating the new teachers. As I watched the desire wriggle, someone approached me. "Nice to meet you. Are you Professor Roger Calasai?" I replied with a slight nod. "Yes, but..." "Nice to meet you. I'm Count Deckers, one of Theon's supporters." I wondered why he didn't move until now, but he was measuring me. When Count Deckers stepped forward first, people who were only looking at him began to move one by one. Once someone started, it was easy for others to move. I wasn't happy with the situation. What should I do? If I leave it like this, things will become messy. I'm here not to have a formal conversation with strangers. I came with the intention of finding the First Order of the Black Dawn Society hiding in the banquet hall. The process had to be natural and I didn't want anyone to disturb me, but from the start I got tangled up by these people before I could even start. If this is the case, I have no choice but to push myself a little harder. "I'm sorry." I spoke firmly to Count Deckers, who spoke to me with a heavy air. "I don't feel like talking to anyone right now." "What did you say?" I said, "I'd appreciate it if you could step aside for a while." My tone sounded like I didn't even want to come here. As I said it, narrowing my eyes, Count Decker swallowed his saliva, and then hurriedly nodded his head. "I'm sorry I wasted your time. I'm glad you're quick-witted, and so were the people around him." When Count Deckers left without doing anything, those who were watching from a few feet away stepped back. They are clearly inferior to the Count Deckers, and since he had not been able to speak with me, they gave up. I think the first round is over. The problem is, there are many people who haven't given up yet. I don't know exactly who Count Deckers is, but considering his position, he must have been above average among those gathered at this banquet hall. The fact that there are people who don't give up giving me persistent eyes when such a person has stepped down naturally proves that their level is high. I'm sure they're pretty annoying people. I'm not happy if such people come forward and talk to me. As I was thinking about how to solve this, I saw a woman with pink hair and a pink dress. It was Teacher Selena, who was embarrassed by a young man's blatant approach. Maybe. I pulled my back from the wall and walked toward Teacher Selena. Some people see me moving and look at me with curious eyes, but I lightly ignored them. Someone plucked up the courage to try to talk to me in the middle, but I blocked all their actions by shaking my hand lightly. Selena, how about having a drink with me? I know a good place. Hee hee. I'm sorry. I don't really like unfamiliar places. Why are you refusing? It's a place where it's hard for ordinary people to go. Oh, no. I mean, that's enough. As I stepped up and spoke, the person who was flirting with Selena teacher looked this way. What is this? He distorted his face with irritation, perhaps because he thought he was disturbed. I stared at him in silence. He's in his late 20s, clothing that looks luxurious, a bad posture with one leg without proper standing, and a self-conceited, defiant look. I looked around. All the guys who were after Selena have gone away. Although Selena is a commoner, she is capable enough to become a teacher of Thean at a young age. In addition, with her striking beauty and a good personality, she must have been quite fascinating for people seeking personal connections. Rather, it would be easier to approach her, because she was a commoner rather than aristocrat. It sounds like he's a high-ranking noble. His family is so strong that even small and medium-sized aristocrats can't speak, but that doesn't concern me. It's rude to trouble a lady. Oh, so who are you? Then Selena looked back at me and opened her eyes wide. Teacher Redger. Redger? Who's that? He doesn't recognize me. Seeing that he was saying that sincerely rather than deliberately, I was very embarrassed. It was at the moment I was thinking about whether I should introduce myself as a new teacher of Thean. A man who looked old among the crowd rushed up, approached the man in front of me, and whispered something in his ear. He is dressed for the party, but I could tell he is a wizard. Maybe he's telling me who I am. So what? With that intention in mind, the man let out a sigh as if it was ridiculous. Oh, really? Maybe it's because he's a fallen aristocrat, but there's nothing in his head. The words made the faces of the nobles watching the situation cold. However, some people who knew about this man were showing signs of resignation as if they knew it would happen. Judging by that reaction alone, it must not have been the first time he spoke such nonsense. My name is Ivan Luke, have you heard of it? Don't you know Luke? When it comes to Lukes, it's a name even the back alley beggars have heard of. I know the name Luke well. Founded by Theodore Luke, Luke is one of the richest conglomerates in the empire. Luke's has spread its influence throughout the empire, to such an extent that it is said to reach out to any field where money exists. Naturally, as a businessman, the name Luke could never be taken lightly. Above all, Luke is the owner of Kunst, which hosts the upcoming auction. Given that Ivan's last name is Luke, he is probably the descendant of Theodore Luke, the founder of Luke's company. Thinking that he was the second generation of a rich conglomerate, I immediately understood the person in front of me. A fallen noble like you is not someone who should make eye contact and talk with others in this place. If you understand, get out of my way, I'll let you off the hook. This is a bothersome situation. I just came in with the intention of removing the flies that were bothering Selena. Apparently, the person in cause was a descendant of Luke. It seems that while I was trying to remove some flies, I pocked a beehive. Behind my back, Selena's slender hands were shaking as she held my sleeve. If I step down from here, that jerk will try to force Selena to go with him. I can't help it. Hey, get out of the way. I'm sorry, I said, staring at Ivan with unwavering eyes. Miss Selena has a prior contract with me first. My face didn't change while I lied. Isn't that so? Teacher Selena. Oh. Perhaps reading something in that action, she nodded hastily. Yes, that's right. Ivan Luke's face was horribly distorted. Hey, are you kidding me? Do I look like I'm kidding? What? Huh. You're a funny guy. Just because you're a Thean teacher or something, do you think I'm going to quit? Ivan strode up to me, saying so. Then he raised his right hand and tried to push my shoulder, but he couldn't because I was faster and grabbed his wrist. What are you doing? Aren't you going to let go of my hand? If you say so, I'll give you the same treatment. I said and increased the strength of my grip on his wrist. Did you think I'd step down just because you're a member of the Luke family? Gasp. Let go of me. Ivan Luke opened his eyes to the intense pressure on his wrist and tried to shake off his arm. Wow, what kind of power is that? His hand doesn't budge. As such, Roger's grip was stronger than he could have imagined. Evan, who thought that the wizards were a group of people who only read books, was shocked. Hey, aren't you going to let this go? You don't know who I am? Do you want to lose your teaching job right now? If you can. There was a slight shadow on Roger's face as he looked down at him. Try it. This. Let's stop there. It was Ivan's attendant who intervened between Roger and Ivan. Roger stared at him and looked around with a sidelong glance. Before he knew it, security guards stood around him as if they were surrounding Ivan. The attendant stared at Roger with a gloomy gaze. Stop there and let go of that hand. Otherwise, what do you intend to do? Roger asked back in a blunt voice. The moment the attendant was about to say that he would regret it, his voice didn't come out properly. He gulped and felt a cold sweat running over his forehead. This guy. He's out of the ordinary. He thought he would win if they fought. Although Roger is a teacher at Theon, he is a professional wizard directly employed by Luke. Now he is bowing his head to a kid who is much younger than him, and he is constantly swearing, but his skills are inferior and he can't do anything. This look. This spirit. I feel like my bones are freezing even though I'm simply facing him. Is he really a new teacher? The aide changed his mind when he saw Evan huffing while trying to step back. He couldn't back down from here. Even if Ivan Lukes is a jerk, he is the chairman's only blood. Although Ivan does not have the ability to inherit his legacy, and the president also did not show much affection for Ivan, he was still treated like a blood relative. That's why he was looking after him. The 3 bodyguards were even made up of members of the Knights Academy. Yeah, we won't lose. However, the only thing that bothered him is that the location is not good. If there was a quarrel on a dark road with no one around, he could just deal with it quietly, but this a banquet hall full of people. All sorts of distinguished guests were watching the situation with interest. Although it is said that the character of the master has already spread throughout the society, if we try to suppress the situation here with force, the image of the group will be severely damaged. It's embarrassing and annoying, but in the current situation, he had to deal with it as best he could. The assistant finished his calculations and started talking. Let's stop here. If we start fighting in this location, we'll hurt other people. As the assistant said as gently as possible, Roger let go of Ivan's hand. Barely freed, Ivan grabbed his throbbing wrist and licked his lips. Hey, you bloody fallen aristocrat. Young master, let's stop here. There are a lot of eyes on us right now. The aide intended to end the situation as much as possible before Ivan did anything, but when he tried to persuade him to stop, Ivan slapped him on the cheek with all his might. Hey, you punk. I told you to call me director. I'm sorry, director. And, my arm. Can't you see this? You want me to step down after all this? Do you want to get fired? No. Suddenly, the atmosphere began to take a strange turn. The assistant sighed inwardly as he saw Ivan's bloodshot eyes. It seemed that the situation could no longer be solved through conversation. Do you think I should just let it slide in front of people like this? Huh? Answer me. No. No, right? Right? Ivan glanced at Roger with eyes full of hostility. Hey, you're done. I'll make sure you're fired on the spot. You know what? I keep my word. Ivan Luke is a director of the Luke family, and under the protection of the chairman, he is a troublemaker, but the weight of his power was never light. It was nothing to cut a new teacher if Luke, who gives Theon a huge amount of funding every year, was determined to put pressure on it. Roger, who was watching the scene from beginning to end, wondered what was going on. Originally, he should have quietly left his seat and started searching for the First Order, but Ivan ruined his plans. There are a lot of eyes around, but it doesn't seem like anyone will stop me. Roger was just thinking about how to do this when someone intervened. President? Theon President and genius wizard Elisa Willow, wearing a black dress full of long frills, appeared naturally at the breathtaking scene with an innocent smile. Are you here to help me? When Roger had a curious expectation, Ivan Luke was already annoyed, and when a new interrupter appeared, he stared at Elisa with an expression as if he wanted to eat her alive. Who are you? Me? I'm the president of Theon. What? Ivan looked at Elisa slightly bewildered. He's heard of Theon president, but it's the first time he actually saw her, so he didn't recognize her right away. A young woman like this is the president? Ivan rather thought it was good. How did you educate your teachers? Education? What education? That fallen aristocrat has used violence against me. People who watched the situation would not have called it violence, but Ivan believed he was a victim. Elisa asked Ivan again, still smiling. So? So what? Fire him right now. If you want to continue to be sponsored by Luke, you'd better. Luke? Aha. You were the son of Chairman Luke. As if Elisa understood, she clapped her hands and nodded. Ivan smiled around, thinking that someone he can communicate with has come. However, Alicia's following words made his face collapse. So? Huh? Didn't you hear me now? Luke. The owner of Luke's company is Chairman Theodore, right? So why is it that you decided that on your own? Although I am a director, I am the only son of President Theodore, you know? I have enough power to decide. Oh, really? So have you discussed all this with your father? The remark left Ivan speechless. There is no way that he could have talked with his father since he got angry and shouted without thinking. Oh, my father would feel the same way. I'm his son. Don't you know that? Oh, really? That's a relief. What do you mean by relief? The chairman just happened to be here. What? Ivan's face turned stupid. The chairman is here? No, it can't be. A lie like that won't work. Wouldn't it be better to see for yourself if I lied or not? Alicia said so, and moved slightly aside. Ivan was able to find a person spreading a strong presence beyond the crowd obscured by Elisa. A white-haired old man was standing on his cane and staring at him. Huh. Ivan's face was as pale as a sheet of white paper. He was running wild without knowing the meaning of the word afraid, but he couldn't stand up to his father. Oh, father? You useless fellow, I told you to go and build a network, but what are you doing? That's not it. Stop making excuses. It was troublesome that I entrusted this task to an idiot like you. Chairman Theodore Luke stared at Ivan angrily and bowed his head toward Elisa. Sorry, President Elisa. My stupid son did this on his own. It's fine. On the contrary, there are not many people who dare to step forward like that to me these days, so it felt a little fresh. Thank you for saying that. Theodore's gaze soon turned to Roger. He was quite displeased with the situation. Even if Ivan made a mistake in the first place, there was no way he would have been able to admire a man who almost had a fight with his son. It was then that Elisa suddenly intervened. Oh, but I think I've been a little harsh on your son. President Elisa? Now it's. So I'd like to give you a chance. Now we are going to end the situation neatly between the parties. Theodore read something in her manner and immediately shut up, and it was the same for Roger, who was watching the situation. I was relieved that the president intervened. The president secretly glanced at him. The corners of her mouth were flinching as if she could not bear the entertaining situation. I think she's a little fickle. The fact that she has that kind of personality is something I've come to realize from meeting her several times. I'm thankful that she mediated the situation, but the president seemed to want to lead the game in the direction she wanted. The two of you will compete in front of everyone. What do you think? At those words, the eyes of the audience watching this situation lit up as if they were interested. What she said was simple. A duel. Of course. Ivan doesn't know magic, and Mr. Roger is a wizard, right? In that case, it cannot be an equal match. So I will give Mr. Ivan a chance to choose someone to fight in his place. Ivan didn't understand why Elisa suddenly said this, but then he stared at Roger, clenched his teeth and nodded. All right. That's what I wanted. Elisa tells him that he can use people, so he seems to think it's worth a try. While he was thinking, Elisa looked back at Roger as if asking, what do you think? Can you do it? Seeing it, Roger sighed inwardly. But I can't say no. It was Elisa who calmed down Ivan, who was about to run wild, no matter what anyone said. Besides, the method of duel wasn't bad for him either. If he forces the situation to end vaguely, Ivan will have bad feelings for him for a long time and act behind the scenes. However, if they have a duel in front of everyone and come to a clean conclusion, then the story will be different. Even the chairman is watching, so even Ivan can't go on a rampage afterwards. No, he's just confident he'll win. I will not retaliate for my defeat in a duel in the presence of so many eyes, and if Ivan tries to do something, Theodore, the chairman, won't let him. I'm sorry, Mr. Rudger. Because of me. No, it's okay. Rudger shook his head at Selena, who was sorry. Even so, I felt that I needed to be in this position at least once. What? There's something like that. In no time, the center of the banquet hall was emptied, and a large space was created. The audience, who retreated outside, stared at Rudger with interest. Among them was contempt for Rudger, coming from his enemy Chris Benamor. In the end, this is how it goes. Ivan chose his assistant as Rudger's opponent. Although he's an assistant, he is also a skilled wizard and a person who once served in the military. I'm not going to hold back. He pulled out a cane from his waist and aimed it at Rudger. Rudger answered with a shrug and lifted a large cane in his hand. Everyone watched the scene breathlessly. A duel between a professional wizard hired by Luke and a new teacher appointed at Theon was a special event that they couldn't see anywhere else. Now, show us a legitimate match. Begin. The observers were President Alicia and Chairman Theodore Luke. At the same time as Eliza's cry, Ivan's aide quickly started casting a spell. He wanted to end it as fast as he could since it was the best he could do for a talented junior, as a senior on the magic path. I will finish this as quickly as possible without wasting time. The most important things in a magic battle are speed of casting and accuracy. In fact, the way he fought was to cast quick spells and immediately overpower his opponent. He also made significant contributions thanks to these abilities when he joined the military, and the reason why he was hired by Luke after his retirement was because of that. He had been through this kind of duels many times in the past and always won, so he thought this duel will be just like those in the past. What? The moment he was about to unleash his magic, he saw that his opponent manifested a much greater amount of spells that swallowed down his magic like a tidal wave. He didn't even have time to respond. What followed was excruciating pain running through his body, and he fell back unconscious. The surrounding area became quiet in an instant. I'll try to post one more chapter later. The audience didn't understand what was going on at all. The duel, which they thought would be a long and fierce battle, ended too quickly, with a one-sided victory. Is this possible? I heard that the other person is a professional hired by Luke. They stared at Rudger in disbelief. From before and until now, Rudger had never changed his cane-raising posture. His expression also didn't change, as if it was natural to win. Winner. Rudger Kellisai. Elisa Willow's bubbly voice signaled the end of the duel. The atmosphere of the banquet hall, which was filled with silence and surprise, finally returned to its original state. Clap. Clap. People began to clap their hands, one by one. Just as water droplets fell on the calm water surface and caused a stir, the sound of applause spread like a contagious disease and filled the entire banquet hall. Clap, 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 clap. What a surprise. Is this the power of a Theon teacher? The wizard hired by Luke isn't ordinary, but he was defeated so easily. What the hell were those spells just now? What a quick magic manifestation. I didn't even see him casting the spells. Was the rumor of using an unusual magic true? Contrary to what I expected, the duel itself didn't feel like it ended too quickly. Still, for an impromptu event, it gave quite a lot of enjoyment, so the audience was satisfied. Oh, my God, that's amazing. Theodore looked at Elisa smiling as if he knew this would happen next to him, and said. The aid I gave to my son was a famous wizard, but he was beaten up in an instant. Are all of Theon teachers such monsters? Haha. No way. Actually, Mr. Rudger is an exceptionally unusual person. Right. I don't think there are more people like him. I wonder if there's anyone worse. I'm sorry for being a worse person, but I was able to show him that way in front of everyone. Theodore smiled and shook his head. I was worried about nothing. It's my fault for having an incompetent son. It was a fair duel, and I will accept this defeat neatly. Having said that, he looked at Ivan, who was still sitting on his seat with a blank expression on his face as if he still couldn't believe his defeat. That stupid fellow won't even accept it and will go wild, but you won't have to worry about it. He'll step up and block everything. As expected, Chairman Theodore. It's nice to talk with you. So I want to ask you a favor. Alicia shook her head like a knife as Theodore Luke tried to speak. You can't. I haven't said anything yet. You want me to introduce you to Mr. Redger, right? Well, you don't have to say that. I'm sorry, but please refrain from reaching out to our teacher. Huh. If you say so, there's nothing I can do. At Alicia's subtle warning, Theodore was forced to raise his hands and declare his defeat. Rudger is clearly a person who is coveted, but he judged that he was not enough to offend the president of Theon in order to make a relationship with him. Theodore is a big hand who has a huge impact on both the political and business world of the empire, but there were a few people who he could not even touch carelessly, and Elisa Willow, the woman in front of him, was one of them. Well, it would be shameless of me to bring it up. Theodore said so, and glanced sideways at the entrance of the banquet hall. But I don't know what they would do. That's right. Alicia followed Theodore at the entrance to the banquet hall, and her complexion slightly hardened. Unwelcome faces were seen entering the banquet hall. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Oh, my. Seeing Ivan Luke's aide stretched out in front of my eyes, I was somewhat perplexed. I thought he was a good-looking person, who would have known that he would fall in vain like this. He said that he was strong, so I was serious. I was a little worried because I didn't know what kind of magic my opponent uses. Surprisingly, however, he was a wizard who excelled in rapid magic. The most important thing in a duel between wizards is the speed of casting. Considering that part, the man in front of me could be seen as a talent that specialized in one-on-one duels in a way, and was close to a first-class talent. That's probably why he said he'd deal with me confidently. He must have been convinced that he could defeat me with his special skill. But why use that against me? This was why I was dumbfounded. I'm not bragging, but even if a wizard of 5th rank or higher came, I could keep up with the speed of casting magic due to the source code. As far as 3rd-tier magic is concerned, I can show a speed that I can beat anyone. At this point, I was embarrassed to the point that I thought he came out to lose on purpose. Did he not know? I deliberately spread rumors while showing the source code magic openly in the first class, but don't people know by this point? Nevertheless, the fact that he bet on speed, I had to say that the person in front of me didn't know the magic I used. No. Even if he knew, he didn't believe it was real like many other wizards around the world. It doesn't matter that I won. The fallen assistant was carried away by Luke's bodyguards. Ivan, the culprit of all this, was still stunned, unable to believe that he had lost the duel. This. He soon looked at me and clenched his fist, but he couldn't scream like he did a little while ago, and I also realized that his gaze was over my shoulder. Are you Rudger Kalasai? I slowly turned my head to look at the owner of the voice. It was. An old man with a long white beard stood with a cane. He was an unusual old man. It was because everyone was wearing stylish suits and dresses, and he was wearing a robe. It wouldn't be strange to be kicked out for not following the dress code by the guard who stood at the entrance right away. However, if a logo symbolizing a specific organization is embroidered on the robe, then the situation is different. Are you from the tower? Oh, you can see it right away. The old man's eyes lit up at my words, and he chuckled. Having a logo symbolizing a tall tower contained in a gold circle on his robe, of course I knew the old man in front of me was a wizard from the tower. Even the foolish Ivan Luke was aware of the existence of the tower, so he stayed in his place. So why did you come to see me? He didn't even come alone, because behind him were 5 other wizards. I saw the duel a little while ago. The opponent's spell casting was quick, but you were much more than that. I've never seen anyone cast their magic so quickly in my life. Is that so? Is that the rumored source code magic? I was wondering why you came here. Was it because of this? I nodded because it was nothing to hide anyway. That's right. Oh. I see. I knew it. The old man reacted like a child who found a great toy. His wrinkled face suddenly showed a strange reaction, and I frowned unknowingly. I asked in a slightly curt tone. So why did you come to see me? Oh? Oh, my. Come to think of it, we didn't even say our names to each other, did we? Far from answering my question, the old man immediately began to introduce himself. My name is Altigo Dantes, and I am a member of the Tower Council. I'm Roger Kalasai, a teacher at Theon. I know. I went to this humble place myself in the first place to meet you. A humble place? But this is a banquet where VIPs gather, so I think it's too much. Me? I was going to visit Theon in person, but who would have thought that the wicked fox would interfere and sabotage me in every way? Roger immediately knew who Altigo was talking about. Oh. Isn't it Chairman Altigo? Because the person in question came out with a smile on her face. Altigo frowned outright when he saw that she came. Elisa Willow. I can't believe I'm seeing you all in a place like this. Is it okay for the president to be in this? You're so lighthearted, why don't you step down? Well, what brings you here, Chairman? You said that you don't fit well with fancy events where you have to be formal. Do I have to tell you that? I'm just here because I have someone to meet. Ahaha. The chairman is very honest. Are you here to see our new teacher? The president's mood, which had been playful until now, had become sharp from the moment she met Altigo. A young genius wizard like the president must be like water and oil with the stagnant and rotting Tower Council. The council is a symbol of the old generation, and the president is a symbol of the new generation who accepts change and wants to develop further. By the way, this isn't a very suitable place for someone like the chairman to come, right? Did you come here to get something to eat? A wicked fox like you should not block my path. The reason I came here has nothing to do with you. Having said that, Altigo tried to ignore the president and spoke to me. I won't be able to talk for long anyway, so let me be straightforward. Why don't you join our tower? I promise I'll give you the best treatment. Chairman. President Elisa screamed, and I was also surprised by Altigo's blunt remarks. His behavior now was very rude, but Altigo continued, ignoring the reactions around him. Should a wizard your size just waste his talent teaching a bunch of kids? When I first heard the rumors about the source code, I was skeptical, but after seeing the duel a while ago, I was convinced. You are a talented person suitable for our tower. I will write a letter of recommendation myself. If you come to the tower, you can occupy a particularly high position. Judging from his reaction, it seems that he had tried to contact me before, but he was stopped due to the constant interference from the president, so he decided to come to the banquet for new teachers. It's a good thing for you, too. You won't have to waste your time teaching some little kids. Would those young bastards even know what magic is? But the tower is different, it's the place where every wizard on the continent wants to join. Altigo talked excitedly about the tower. The summary of what he said was the tower, it's the best and everything else is trash. He was really arrogant, but in a way, he was not too wrong. The majesty of the tower was definitely something he could be proud of. I paused for a moment, pretending to think about it, and then opened my mouth. If I were to go to the tower, what could you do for me? Oh. Mr. Roger? Altigo knew this would happen, but President Elisa couldn't believe it. Haha. What do you want? Do you want a lot of money? The amount of support that comes into the tower every year is second to that of Theon. I don't know how much they give you, but we can give you at least 3 times that. Or do you want power? If you come under me and submit a magic thesis, you'll win the position of chief wizard directly under the council. Or do you want a great artifact? I can give it to you if you want to. In that case, I brought up the subject. If I ask for a seat in the Tower Council, will you give it to me? What? Altigo's face contorted for a moment. The same was true of the 5 wizards who were lined up behind him and listening to the conversation. They soon realized what I was saying and turned hostile. What does that mean? You want a seat in the council? Yes. Are you crazy? When you enter the tower, you need to know how to say thank you. We even give you money. But a seat in the council? Do you not know what kind of position that is? I know very well. How can you not know? Isn't it a place for old people who don't have skills? Are you serious? Or are you drunk and don't know what you're saying? I'm wide awake. Are you out of your mind? Altigo's face changed to that of a dove that had been shot. He glared at me and gritted his teeth. It's not enough to dare to reject the tower offer and blaspheme the name of the magic tower? Are you still sane? Now that you've developed a new magic, have you ever mistakenly thought that you've become something? The old man, who had been chatting happily until a while ago, was nowhere to be found. Altigo's forehead was filled with blood, and his face was red. There are things that should be said and things that shouldn't be said. I guess I put it in a difficult way. What? So hey, race, what I'm talking about. I looked down at the old man in front of me and said, no matter what you give me, I won't come to the tower. Another chapter sponsored by Mystichead. Thank you for your support. When Roger told them directly that he would never join the tower, Altigo just opened his mouth and didn't say anything. It was the same with the 5 wizards who followed him. Although they are now called the Old Guard and have declined considerably compared to the heyday of the tower, which wielded absolute power, there were still countless wizards who dreamed of joining the tower. Altigo was one of the 12 members of the Tower Council that only a selected few members of the tower could join, and the reality was that he couldn't even put pressure on the wizard in front of him. But, what? What did the boy in front of him say now? Even if they give him a seat in the council, he won't join the tower? You punk. How dare you say that in front of me? The first to grasp the situation was one of the 5 disciples Altigo brought. The chairman is kind to the teachers of Theon, so don't be arrogant. Master, you should just ignore a guy like that. He couldn't control his anger, and he looked like he didn't want to be here for even a second. But as soon as he was about to leave, he heard Eliza's giggling, not Roger's reply. Ha 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 ha. Instead of her usual fake laughter, her laughter was 100% real this time. Altigo was embarrassed by her laughter, and it was the same for the 5 disciples. After a long giggle, Alicia laughed so hard that she had to wipe away her tears with her fingertips. It's so funny. I don't know how long it's been since I laughed like this. Saying that, she returned to her usual appearance. Mr. Roger doesn't want to go, so what can I do? You came all the way here for nothing. It was a good opportunity for Elisa to tease Altigo, since he was rejected by someone much younger than him and had his pride hurt. I told you you'll be rejected anyway, so why bother visiting the academy? Do you think the current tower is still the old one? You. Can't you watch your mouth? One of Altigo's 5 disciples stepped up in a fit of rage, and Eliza's expression changed in an instant. What if you don't like it? What? What are you going to do if you don't like it? At the moment Altigo's disciple panicked, a chilling spell erupted from Alicia and began to tighten his body. Cough. He couldn't breathe properly and stared at Alicia with disbelieving eyes. He knew that Elisa Willow was a genius wizard who achieved the 6th rank at a young age. Even though she was a member of the tower, she suddenly left and became the president of Theon. When the public praised her as a genius, he couldn't take it. If she were a real genius, she should have stayed in the tower and made a name for herself. Why did she left and became Theon president? Of course, he thought that she ran away and went to an academy where she played house for children because she was afraid that she couldn't handle the situation in the tower. He thought that the rumors about her were exaggerated, and if he met her, he could prove that he was superior. Different dimensions. He couldn't move even a single tip of his finger. It is difficult to even breathe, let alone use magic. He felt like he was deep in the deep sea filled with endless darkness. But what makes him even more distressed is that Elisa was at least considerate of him so he could breathe. I'm not her opponent. This was the power of the youngest 6th level wizard, the power of the Lecturer rank, which is the 3rd highest among the existing 8 ranks. Stop it. It was Altigo who broke the overflowing tension with a single word. Elisa sighed inwardly and withdrew her magic power. Despite his personality, she knows Altigo abilities are real. He is a 6th level wizard like her, so if they clash for nothing, things will only escalate. Altigo restrained his disciples with a calm voice. You should stop, too. Oh, but, sir. Altigo looked back at his disciples in silence. The disciples, who tried to refute something, shut their mouths when they saw Altigo's expressionless face. Let's go. Before leaving, Altigo glared at Elisa for the last time and then glared over her shoulder at Roger, staring at him with a blank face. You'll definitely pay for it later. Even if he's a no-nonsense person, he's just backing down because his personality isn't so bad that he would make a fuss in a place like this. Altigo promised time and again that he would never forget this disgrace. Usually, in this situation, the other person will also react nervous or embarrassed, but Roger didn't, he only nodded his head slightly. It was like he was saying try it if you can. Altigo left the banquet hall, biting his molars, and the 5 students, who were at a loss, rushed to follow after Chairman Altigo. Phew. When Altigo disappeared completely, Elisa relaxed her shoulders. Then, unlike usual, she smiled at Roger with a little tired look. "I'm sorry, Mr. Roger. I should have been more thorough." "No, the president helped a lot." "You don't have to say that. Anyway, the reason I interfered is because I have a bad relationship with them." After saying that, Elisa asked abruptly, "Do you hate the tower?" If he had to answer, he would say yes, and it was the same with Elisa. "Actually, I was a magician from the tower." "I know. It's actually harder to find a wizard on the continent who's not from the tower. Anyway, I called a genius there." "Oh, that's too much bragging about myself." "That's all right. I worked hard there, but the tower is a bit old-fashioned, isn't it? These days, science and magic are advancing, so it was hard for old people in the tower to accept them, and we fought a lot. The old and new towers are separated. The old tower is a place where pure wizards gather. Their mindset is that magic is the greatest and only the chosen ones should practice it. On the contrary, the God Tower is a faction trying to cast off the authoritarian mask of magic and combine it with modern science. It may have been hundreds of years ago, but human history has made rapid progress in the last 200 years. Cars appeared instead of carriages, and weapons using gunpowder instead of simple swords were the mainstay. Nevertheless, the existence of wizards and knights was still an axis of the world, but they could not completely reject change either, especially the wizards. Magic and science seem to be the same, but they are different. The old tower wizards argued that science should be rejected, but the new tower wizards thought science and magic should be combined, so they acted and created magic engineering by combining magic and science. The birth of magic engineering made the world develop faster. Steamboats, engineering trains, steam golems, flying airships, and all sorts of things were born, and even now new things are continuing to appear. In such a turbulent world, the tower was torn apart by the two forces. The confrontation between Altigo and Elisa shows the relationship between the old and the new, and Roger was a New Age wizard. To be more precise, his mind is that of a New Age wizard, but his magic is old-fashioned. The real magic, which he did not show well to others, was much closer to old-fashioned magic than to New Age magic. However, it was not something to brag about, so Roger nodded and only responded to Elisa's words. "Did I talk too much?" "Still, this is a banquet for a long-awaited celebration, and Mr. Roger must be tired." "No. I'll leave you alone now, I have a lot of people to deal with." "Mr. Roger, enjoy yourself today, but with just a little bit of alcohol. You get it, right?" "Of course." Elisa disappeared from his sight, fluttering the hem of her black dress as she did when she appeared. "Is it finally over?" Following a quarrel with Ivan Luke, the wizards of the tower came and bothered him. It was quite a mental exhaustion, but Roger soon got back on track, because he came here for a purpose. "Ah. Mr. Roger." As Roger approached, Selena, who was with the others, welcomed him. "Teacher Selena, are you all right?" "Yes. The president of that Luke company personally came and apologized." "That's a relief." No matter how incompetent his son was, the chairman apologized himself. He may have an ulterior motive, but he is certainly not a fool like his son. Roger glanced back and looked at the faces of the people with Selena. "You were talking to other people." Selena had very few friends present in the banquet hall, but besides her was Ms. Marilda, who often takes care of her. "Oh, nice to meet you. You are the one from the rumors." 3 women and a man opened their eyes in surprise at Roger. They were people he met for the first time, but faces that he passed by at least once. They were the teachers in charge of spirit studies at Theon. There were 4 of them, each taking up 1 seat from the 2nd grade to the 5th grade. Roger greeted them courteously. "I am Roger Kelisai, the teacher in charge of the 2nd grade manifestation class. I heard of the new teacher in charge of the 2nd grade. I'm Sathruna, the 2nd-year spirit studies teacher." Sathruna was a woman with short red hair. For a moment, Roger suspected that she might be Esmeralda, the First Order. "No. I can't make a decision yet." The other teacher introduced themselves as well. "My name is Partanya, and am in charge of the 3rd grade. Partanya, who teaches 3rd grade students, was an impressive lady with a great presence. "My name is Viorano Dentes, and I'm in charge of the 4th grade. The teacher in charge of the fourth grade was the only man in the spirit school, and he looked rather timid with a small frame. Surprisingly, he was an elf with pointed ears. Is he an elf? There was nothing particularly strange about having multiple subraces in Theon, so an elf in charge of the spirit studies class is nothing special. I'm Angela Anderson. Finally, the fifth grade teacher in charge of the graduating class was a sharp-looking woman wearing glasses. She was strict, but quite beautiful, and looked like she was hard to approach. If I narrow down the list, one of those three should be Esmeralda. The problem is who the real one among the three is. Esmeralda knows about the identity of Roger, so she might show some kind of reaction when they shook hands, but none of them showed any particular reaction towards him. Could it be that it's none of them? Esmeralda's personality is fiery and tricky, and she gets annoyed quickly when things don't go her way. The second grade teacher Sathruna, it's the most suspicious. Only teachers with experience are appointed for the third grade and higher, and the new teachers are mainly in charge of the first two grades, so if the Black Dawn Society wants to plant people, they would most likely be there. Should I get Hans to find out about the person named Sathruna? As his worries deepened, he was a little thirsty, and as he was about to call a waiter, he had no choice but to pause for a while because she looked familiar. Renee? A student who attends his class and possesses non-attribute magic, and because she was paying attention to him, she was staying close to Roger. Wearing a black and white waitress suit and holding a silver tray in one hand, Renee also froze when she saw Roger. Only one chapter today. Roger was a bit perplexed, because he didn't know that Renee would be in a place like this. Renee, what are you doing here? That's. Renee pondered whether or not to say this, but she didn't have anything to hide anyway, so she decided to be honest. Part-time job it's. Part-time job? Yes, I heard they're looking for people to serve here, so I got a recommendation from a senior I know. I heard that the pay is good and the job doesn't take long. Is it a part-time job? I wondered if it was necessary to entrust it to Theon students, but surprisingly, this kind of thing happened quite often. Leathervelk once had an agreement with Theon. It is said that Theon students are specially hired for various necessary tasks in Leathervelk. The same is true of the bulletin boards that exist in Theon. The purpose of the agreement was to hire Theon students for less difficult work and give them the opportunity to earn the necessary funds. This was also good for Leathervelk because they could have the opportunity to meet Theon students and put a face stamp on talented people who would become great wizards in the future, along with a positive image of the city. Even with these banquet halls, it was not uncommon for some students to come as part-time workers. Besides me, there are several other seniors, so it's okay. Line smiled and replied. According to Henry, this was an easy part-time job and she could earn a lot of money, but she didn't expect that it would be a banquet hall where teachers and important people gather. Yes, I see. Would you like a drink? Yeah. Roger took a glass from Renee's tray and immediately drank it. It was a little unexpected to have Renee in a place like this, but it wasn't really a problem. It was just a little surprising. This wasn't something he needed to worry about. But whenever he sees her, he suddenly remembers what happened in the past. It's even more so when he sees her standing still and looking at him having a drink with sparkling eyes. She has the same appearance as Renee, and he couldn't get her out of his head. Renee. You. What? Roger, who was suddenly going to say something to Renee, could not finish his words properly. No, it's nothing. I can't tell her because of that promise. Giving her the book, it's the only thing I could do. Don't overdo it, go home early. All Roger could say was, after all, just some advice. Oh, yes. Thank you. I'll be on my way. Yes. After Renee bowed her head and backed away, Selena, who found her late, approached Roger and asked. That kid just now was Renee? You know her? I thought she wasn't in your class. Yes. We got to know each other the other day, but what is Renee doing here? She said she had a part-time job. Selena clapped her hands. Aha. That's right. I think I heard that some students who don't get scholarships make money from other jobs. No wonder my assistant was here. Your assistant? At the word assistant, Roger remembered how Selena took the students to the fantasy forest for the test. Who is it? It's that kid over there. Selena raised her hand and pointed to one side. There was a girl with dark brown hair and long braids over her shoulder. He couldn't see her face well because she was wearing big glasses, but Roger recognized her immediately. Her name is Joanna Lovett, a freshman who entered Thean, and I took her as an assistant because she has a deep knowledge of spirituality. I see. Joanna Lovett? It was his first time taking her name because she was not a student taking his class. Roger stared carefully at the figure. She stood still with a tray that had now been emptied, looking like the other students who were working here. Come to think of it, among the people on the scene at the time, I didn't pay much attention to the assistants. Esmeralda wields a high-level spirit of fire, so that was the reason why he thought she would be at least a teacher. With Esmeralda's real identity unknown, Joanna Love could not escape from the suspects list. Just as I thought so, Joanna Lovett, who was standing still, began to move. What is she trying to do? Roger watched her movements closely. She was now glancing around secretively so that no one else would notice her, but Roger could tell. Joanna moved cautiously, placing a silver tray on the table at the center of the banquet hall. Where are you going? After she put her tray down, she went back to her place and stood still. Was she just trying to put an empty tray away? Maybe I've become too sensitive. Roger looked away from Joanna Lovett and glanced over the banquet hall, and he could hear people talking. Did you hear the news this time? What do you mean? They've been saying that the back alley vagrants have been acting extraordinarily lately. You mean the low class? That's what happens all the time. If it was the same, I would have lost interest, but this time it's a little unusual. What is so unusual? The middle-aged man who opened his mouth nodded and cleared his throat. Would you believe me if I say they're doing business? Ha 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 ha. The laughter was indistinct because everyone was talking, but Roger, who was listening, certainly heard it. It was obviously a laugh. Huh. The lowlife's doing business? Did you see it wrong? I didn't see it either, I just heard the rumors, but I don't think it's just false rumors. It's not a false rumor? I don't know what's been going on in the back alley recently, but they said the guys who were fighting every day are now holding hands. He said everything he knew. They cleaned up the slums and started using a building as an office. People said they even saw a large amount of fabric going into it. Huh. What the hell are they doing? I heard they're trying to get into the clothing business, but they don't have a chance. Ha ha ha. That's right. What can the lower class do since the luxury clothing stores are holding the market as tightly as they are now? Overhearing this, Roger realized that what he had ordered was going well. You're moving faster than I thought. Since people noticed what's happening, it must have been quite a while since you started moving in earnest. They tried to pretend not to, but they were desperate, and the strategy that Roger showed them was more than effective and a little overkill. People who used to roll in the dark, dirty mud found hope. They who lived their entire lives down there realized that they might be able to go up, so how can they stay still? And that strong desire will be a huge wave that no one can stop. No matter what the lower class do, it'll be from there. That's right. What about the money they need for business? Will the back alley prostitutes, beggars, and bastards come together change anything? It's amazing that there's someone who's funded them. I can't even borrow money because my credit rating is low. Isn't it because the royal family is all for the common people these days? So the lower ones are climbing up. It's ridiculous. They're just going to eat the piece of bread that rolls down from the top, and are going to enjoy some kind of wealth. Don't be so angry. Still, we don't have to step up and trample on them, do we? What can they do? They'll just destroy themselves. Let's have wine while watching the scene. Ha 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 ha. Eventually, they couldn't hold back and burst into laughter among themselves. You fools. Roger shook his head. They won't be able to laugh in the future. They're just individuals who can't read the tide of the times. The human world is so small, and on the contrary, the world is so huge. More than what we see, what we know by knowledge, and what exists on a map. From their point of view, the immeasurably huge world inevitably seems to stand still, but that doesn't mean the world has stopped. The world is moving endlessly toward the future. History proves it. Nothing seems to have happened in a day or two, but a surprisingly big change will happen in a year and two since the world is changing in every moment. You'll find out soon. After thinking that far, Roger stumbled in his seat without realizing it. Teacher Roger, are you okay? It's nothing. The floor is a little slippery. Selena asked anxiously. Roger responded lightly, but couldn't come to his senses because of the ringing sound in his head. Are you all right, Il? I'm going to get some fresh air. The words around him began to be eaten up by the noise. Roger cleared his breath and left immediately. Selena looked worried, but she didn't follow him when he refused. He came out on the balcony. There was no one here, because the banquet was in full swing. Who? Roger held on to the marble railing with his hands. The noise, which was not heard properly, began to take on the shape of a clear language. Accepting. Let's. You're chosen. Shut up. Roger ignored the voice and took out his pills. Unlike the usual 2 or 3 pills, he put as many as he could in his mouth this time. At the same time, his voice, which had become increasingly distinct, began to be crushed again, as if trapped behind a fog. Soon, the noise gradually decreased and disappeared like an echo leaving the mountain. Who? Roger sighed with relief and stared at the night view of Leathervelk over the railing on the balcony. The city, where light flowed everywhere, was shining brilliantly in the dark, and Roger felt the night breeze over his body. He closed his eyes for a moment and thought about what he should do in the future, what he can do, and soon the answer was clear in his mind. Roger Kelisai? Chris Benamor, wandering around to take a break, unwittingly hid behind a wall when he saw Roger Kelisai standing alone on a balcony. What are you doing here alone? It was 30 minutes ago that he defeated the wizard hired by Luke in front of everyone. Chris Benamor had also watched the duel. He had hoped Roger would be brutally defeated there, but the reality was not the same as his wishes. Roger knocked down his opponent with overwhelming force in front of everyone. The speed of his casting was instantaneous, and Chris realized it was the source code magic. He's a formidable man. As he thought so, he struggled to ignore the growing sense of inferiority he had in his heart. By now, you should have been surrounded by people and hearing all kinds of praises. But he was alone on the balcony. You're eating something. The man, who was usually expressionless and emotionless, was now so exhausted that he was unrecognizable. He took something out of his arms and began to pour it into his mouth. Is it medicine? Is it what he usually eats? Does he have a chronic disease? Chris Benamor reached a conclusion at this moment. Too much medicine, it's harmful to the body, but there's only one kind of medicine that isn't. A drug that restores mana. Although there are very few magic recovery drugs in the form of pills, it cannot be said that there are none. Are you eating them because you are suffering from a lack of magical power? If yes, why? Chris' head was spinning. It's because of the duel a little while ago. Roger knocked down his opponent using a series of colorful magic in front of everyone. The magic power was not great and it was all second and third tier magic, but Chris could tell that Roger was now struggling with a lack of mana. Chris Benamor was the first to notice the weakness of Roger. I see. That's why he ended the magic duel quickly. The hidden secret of Roger Kelisai, unknown to others, was that the amount of magical power he possesses is absurdly low. So far, you must been regularly taking a magic pill to not get caught. Chris Benamor couldn't help but smile since he found Roger's weakness that no one knew about. The magic festival is about to take place. I can do it there. Chris Benamor ran away before he fully recovered, fearing that he might be caught by Roger. Is it over? The cause was that he used too much magic during the magic duel a while ago. At first, he thought it was okay, but he didn't notice that he was running out of magic because he took his time talking to other people. I have become too lax. He used to live with a pill in his mouth like a habit, but he forgot even that. There were so many other things to care about, but it seemed necessary to reflect on himself a little. At least I managed to narrow down the list of suspects and am one step closer to discovering Esmeralda's identity. When he came back to the banquet hall, thinking that, screams erupted from everywhere. Aha! A monster, a monster! Everyone shouted in a tearful voice. Roger, who had just returned to the banquet hall, could also see that in the center of the banquet hall, the figure of a giant of blazing fire appeared on the table. It's Esmeralda. Roger realized that the Black Dawn Society First Order Esmeralda summoned the spirit. The sudden appearance of the fire giant turned the banquet hall into a crucible of chaos in an instant. Well, what the hell is that? Arg! Run! People were startled and scattered around but ended up colliding with each other. Most of the people who gathered here were incompetent. As a result, they failed to maintain their reason in the sudden situation and panicked. The giant opened his mouth when he saw them. When the mouth full of sharp fangs like that of an animal opened, what was seen inside was a bright red wiggling flame like the one on the bottom of hell. The people watching the scene turned pale and they felt instinctively what the giant was going to do. A flame that was so hot that their skin burned even if they were far away, for it was spewed out from the center of the banquet hall, but at that moment, the guards moved. Since it is a banquet hall where important people gather, all the guards were night in case something happened. The guards in black suits pulled out the sword worn on their waist and swung it right away. Even if the number of guards is not large, considering that one knight is equal to several dozen or more mercenaries, the security at this banquet hall was not low. The first sword wielded by the guard hit the flame. The aura contained in the sword cut through the flames and deflected it in another direction. A long stream of fire turned and engulfed the ceiling of the banquet hall. The fire spread like concentric circles on the ceiling and burned up all the chandeliers hanging in the air. The chandelier, unable to withstand the heat of the fire, melted and fell to the ground. Avoid it. Run away. Screams resounded everywhere. The panicked people bumped into each other and fell, but others stepped on them and kept running. The banquet hall was instantly filled with chaos, reminiscent of a battlefield. It was then that Theon's teachers acted. This way. Slowly. Move calmly. Spirits appeared everywhere to block or remove debris falling from the sky. The spirit of the wind helped those who fell, and the spirit of water extinguished the flames on the ceiling. Other wizards didn't sit still either as magic erupted from everywhere and was shot at the fire giant, but the fire giant blocked the magic with his body. We must defeat that monster. Where the hell did it come from? Just buy some time. People's evacuation comes first. Roger stared at the figure of the fire giant. It's his first time seeing it, but that energy definitely looked familiar. It was clear that it was the advanced level spirit of fire he encountered at that time. Advanced? No. It's stronger than that. At that time, he felt that it was at least an advanced level spirit, but now that he sees it, its majesty is quite extraordinary. At this level, it seems close to a supreme level spirit that has an extremely low probability to be born from the essence of nature. The supreme level is the level directly below the elemental lords that are representing the attribute of the elements. To think she called a guy like that. On the continent, spirits are graded from the lowest to the highest. Among them, the advanced level spirits belong to the 4th and 5th ranks compared to wizards, and the supreme level spirits are close to the 6th rank. And on top of that was the elemental lord. The giant of fire, who just broke into the banquet hall, is a supreme level spirit, which can be said to be just below the elemental lords. Since it was such a powerful existence, the attack magic used on the spot was not able to deal it a proper blow. Esmeralda, where is she? Roger rolled his eyes. The most suspicious person was a girl named Joanna Lovett whom Selena had been talking about. However, she has not been seen since the fire giant appeared. He needed to find her. As soon as he thought so, the giant of fire, which had been under attack, moved again. The fire from the ceiling, which had not been extinguished, stretched down as if responding to the cry of the giant. It felt more like a thick liquid with high viscosity, rather than a fire. As it fell, the guards moved in haste. Don't let the guests get hurt. Cut it down, or get rid of it. Do as you please. One of the guards who shouted like that immediately swung his sword and cut the falling drops of fire. What? The thick flame he had cut with his sword was not properly cut, but rather stuck to his sword. If that was all, it wouldn't have been an issue. However, the flame attached to the blade spread to the body of the guard in an instant. Arg! The guard, who hit the falling drops of fire, was caught in flames in an instant and rolled on the floor. Even with the superior physical ability of a knight, he had no power at this moment. The power of fire possessed by the supreme spirits is different from ordinary fires and has an extremely high temperature. The faces of the other guards who saw the scene turned white. Everyone, be careful. You must not touch it. If it attaches to your sword, throw it away, otherwise, you will die. Maybe it was because the call was a little late, but 3 more guards were burned to death after the first victim. Roger frowned at the sight. Is it because the spirit used the element? It's not like a normal fire, but more like magma. For a fire, the shape is clear, and even though it is small in size, its calorific value is unimaginably high. In fact, if one looked closely at the giant of fire, there were black spots all over its body, it was literally the embodiment of living magma. I heard that spirits usually show the mystery and magnificence of nature. It is said that the form of the spirit is not fixed, but there are some rules. Basically, a spirit takes the form of an animal, plant, or other deformed structures. It is the same as the spirit level increases. The spirit's rank changes, depending on how much nature's energy it holds. The higher the rank, the stronger the energy of Mother Nature, and the more it is, the more it becomes something other than the form of a living being. Long ago, while wandering the world with his master, Rudger once witnessed the elemental lord of water. The appearance he saw at that time was quite different from what people assumed and talked about. It looked like a mixture of oriental dragons and giant whales. The being that was bigger than an island was moving above the sea level, scattering countless white manes like a huge sea fog behind its back because it literally embraced the wonders of nature. But the fire giant in front of him did not do that, it was close to being tailored to human senses. A supreme-level spirit that has human form. Human form with arms crossed. Although it is large, it looks more like a bizarre lump of fat rather than muscles. The black spots that appeared all over its body made the appearance of the fire spirit even more ghastly. A twisted spirit. That was the best way to describe it, and as Rudger stared at the spirit, he noticed something strange. It has no lower body? Compared to the giant's peculiarly enlarged upper body, the lower body was almost invisible. Probably because he didn't have a lower body, and I knew right away that it was because it wasn't summoned properly. She used a medium. There are two ways to make a spirit manifest when summoning a spirit. The first is to summon a spirit through the contractor's magic. However, if this method was used, magicians sensitive to magic could immediately recognize the identity of the summoner. In that case, the second method is used. That is, using a medium to summon a spirit. It depends on the type of medium, but a top-tier spirit won't be summoned properly unless a very expensive ore is used. But the advantage of using a medium is that the summoner won't be discovered. Esmeralda's choice was the second method, and she used a medium to summon the fire spirit. The silver tray on the table. It was obviously the tray that Joanna Lovett had secretly brought in the middle of the banquet hall. Even if it was incomplete, it was not a common tray if it had enough power to summon a supreme-level spirit. It's fortunate that Esmeralda has been identified, but the situation was not been quite favorable for Rudger either, since he can't go after Joanna until the spirit is taken care of. Now it's not the time. Rudger looked around. The guards were working hard to restrain the giant, and some wizards are also hitting him with water and ice magic. In the chaotic situation, Rudger found a person who had not yet been evacuated. That's. His expression hardened quickly. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. What's going on? Renee opened her closed eyes. She remembered walking around and serving people until a while ago, but she couldn't remember anything clearly after that. The last sight she had seen was something exploding in front of her. Did she faint? Raising her upper body by gripping her dizzy head, she finally realized what had happened at the banquet hall. What? The center of a banquet hall, the place where the party was supposed to be in full swing, was a complete mess, and a fire giant was wreaking havoc. A spirit? Is that a spirit? A giant of her great stature was fighting against the guards and magic teachers in her banquet hall. It was so powerful that she couldn't guess its level. It's not the time for this. I have to run. As Renee tried to move her body, she felt a burning pain in her ankle and frowned. My legs. She had a scar on her ankle, the wound wasn't deep, but she couldn't move. I have to crawl and run. At that moment, the fire giant scattered flames around. It must have intended to get rid of all the flies that bothered him at once. Ah. Renee saw the scene and realized that she couldn't avoid the fireballs that have the power to turn a person into ashes. Renee closed his eyes tightly and waited for death, but at that moment, she had a feeling that something had covered her body and pulled her strongly somewhere. Huh? Doesn't it hurt? Renee carefully opened her closed eyes and saw Rudger looking down at her. Renee. Mr. Rudger. Are you okay? Why is he here now? No, more than that, did he save her? Renee was desperately rolling her head that didn't work well, and realized what was going on. Rudger saved her life. Sir. Stay still. Ren struggled with her face dyed red, but Rudger remained motionless. He held Renee in his arms, withdrew to a safe place, and immediately checked her legs. The wound is not deep. I have a recovery pill, so wait. Seeing Roger immediately taking out the medicine bottle from his arms, Renee felt a strange feeling. What is it? Obviously, Mr. Roger and her had little contact. To be honest, she didn't have much to do with him. But at this moment, Roger saved her from a crisis and was even treating her. It occurred to her that she had seen this sight somewhere. Teacher. What's wrong? Renee didn't know why she's saying this, but she really wanted to ask. Didn't we meet before? Chapter sponsored by MadLove27. Thank you for your support. At Rene's question, Roger trembled for a moment, but it was only for an instant and Renee didn't see it. Roger replied calmly. What are you talking about? Did you see anything? What? Oh, no. I suddenly felt that way. That's enough nonsense. The treatment is over. Oh. Rene's injured leg immediately recovered thanks to the medicine. Renee, leave, it's dangerous here. What about you? I will do what I have to do here as a teacher. You're the only one left, so go ahead. Renee was about to say something, but she stopped. Because she couldn't ask Roger all the questions she had in a dire situation like now. Nevertheless, what is this feeling? She was clamoring in her head to ask Roger the questions as soon as possible. No, I can't disturb Mr. Roger now. Renee tried to shake off her lingering feelings of regret and bowed to Roger. Thank you for saving me. Then she ran out in the direction pointed by Roger. Roger turned to the banquet hall after confirming that Renee had completely disappeared out of his sight. As the fire giant began to move, wizards and guards were being pushed helplessly. Still, the number of deaths did not increase due to ignorance as before, but it was only a matter of time now. Roger checked his physical condition. This noisy banquet is going to end now. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Countless spells flew through the air, targeting the supreme-level spirit, the main culprit for the current situation. Eventually, magic collides with the spirit of fire, explodes, and scatters powerful shock waves around it. We got it? As soon as a wizard's murmur, which had been sweating due to excessive mana consumption, ended, the fire giant appeared from the foggy smoke and he looked even more ferocious than before. Get out of the way. At that moment Theon's spirit studies teacher stepped forward. Among them, Angela Anderson, who was in charge of 5th grade classes, took the lead. Bite it. Ventuswalp. Ventuswalp, a supreme-level spirit of the wind, who looked like a giant wolf with a fluttering white mane, jumped at the giant of fire at the order of the contractor and bit his neck. Qua. The fire giant, who did not even move even after being attacked by magic, responded for the first time. The giant of fire, who was screaming in pain, clenched his right fist and tried to swing it toward the wolf hanging from his upper body. You can't do that. It was Viorano Dentes, the 4th grade spirit studies teacher and an elf who spoke. Behind his back was a tiny salamander made of pure water swimming around. Viorano pointed his hand at the giant of fire and the spirit of water moved. He rolled his little body in a circle and soon shot out like a shell. Boom! It collided with the fist of the fire giant, which had just been aiming at Ventuswalp. No one on the scene thought that the little lizard could stop the giant's attack, but the result of the crash was surprising. The fire giant's right fist turned black after the fire was extinguished under his elbow. Compared to Ventuswalp, the supreme-level spirit of the wind, it was shabby in size, but its power was that of a supreme-level spirit, and since the opponent was a fire spirit, it had the advantage. Well done. With this, we can win. Some people watching the situation from behind cheered, but Unsilane's contractor, Viorano, frowned secretly. It was a powerful attack, but it didn't completely defeat him. Others don't know, but he did. In particular, Unsilane, who signed a contract with him, was not maintaining its form properly due to the collision just now. Even though it only bounced the giant fist, Unsilane was significantly pushed back. Isn't it possible to deal with a supreme spirit using a supreme spirit? The supreme spirit of fire that appeared in the center of the banquet hall was unlike ordinary spirits, and it also took the form of a human being. If the president was here, the situation would have been different. The president left the banquet a little while ago, and the spirit of fire appeared after that, so the president couldn't come to help. Maybe the person behind this attack now may have been aiming for the president's absence. Even so, there are a number of Theon's teachers here, knowing that they still started the attack. Is it because they were confident in their power? Who the hell summoned a supreme-level fire spirit here? A person of that level shouldn't be a terrorist. But his thoughts didn't last long. The supreme spirit of fire, which had slowed down for a while, began to move. The fist of his right hand, which had been extinguished, burned again. Seeing that he wasn't affected by unsilent hit, Biarano made a bold decision. Teacher Angela, have Ventuswalp step back. All right. Angela heard Biarano's words, and Ventuswalp immediately stepped back. Soon after, a scorching heat spread around the fire giant's body. Had she been too late to withdraw Ventuswalp, the spirit would have been engulfed by the heat. Teacher Angela murmured in a faint tone. That's the power of a supreme spirit. We can't take it down, but we can buy time if we work together. In a little while Leathervelk's police will move after hearing the news, the knights of the city that exist above them, to be exact. If they step forward, it will be easier to defeat the fire giant. But he's really hot right now. Even if we work together to defend ourselves, how long will we last? Even though he was prepared for the after effects of this, he didn't know if he would have to squeeze out all his strength. The moment he was determined to do so, and wanted to convey his opinion to others, Biarano noticed a black shadow rising above the fire giant's head. What? What is that? It was the same with other guards and wizards. A man was looking down at the giant of fire, floating high enough to cling to the ceiling while holding a staff. Roger Kelisai? The most frequently mentioned name in Theon recently. But why now? He was fully aware of his skills after seeing the magic duel at the beginning of the banquet, but this is a different case. The opponent is a supreme spirit of fire. No matter how powerful Roger Kelisai is, he can't deal with that. You got caught. What Biarano was worried about happened. The fire giant discovered the existence of Roger. The two eyes that contained the essence of hot fire were raised and faced Roger. Roger stared silently at the ugly monster. Did you not like that look? The fire giant contorted his face and clenched his fists. At that moment, Roger's magic appeared. Third-tier magic, combined with the source code, was unfolded at a swift speed, appearing around him one by one. Around Roger, like countless clock hands, spears made of each element appeared. However, they were not only small in number, but also had insufficient power against the enemy in front of him. Then, the hand holding the staff pointed at the fire giant, and at the same time, the magic moved. That's not going to work. All the teachers watching the scene had the same thoughts. The fire giant will receive Roger's attack with its body and block them. The scene in everyone's head was all the same, but... Kua! The giant of the fire suddenly screamed and curled up. It was like trying to protect something from Roger's magic. Roger's magic struck the fire giant in the back, and even those watching were embarrassed by the sudden action of the giant. What's wrong? Why is it moving like that? Biarano recalled one thing he had overlooked. Medium? Did he aim for that? What? Mr. Biarano. Are you talking about the medium for spirits? Biarano nodded at Angela's question. After he became convinced, he began to see things he had not seen. Why has such a huge spirit suddenly appeared in the center of the banquet hall? Because it was summoned using the highest quality medium. Most of the spirits are summoned only with the contractor's magic, so he forgot about the other case. Now, Mr. Roger is directly targeting the medium from which that spirit was summoned. So the spirit responded to it and crouched down. If it is a medium, is there a problem? Angela answered Pertonia's question with a stiff face. It's a big problem. The spirit of fire is protecting it with his body, so it would be impossible to even pierce it without a high amount of firepower. She said because all the attacks that Roger threw were blocked by the fire giant's body and disappeared. No matter how much magic he used, he will not be able to penetrate the fire giant and eliminate the medium inside. Roger also felt the same way. I don't have enough power, but to be honest, it would be difficult to use other magic here. It had been a while since he had almost exhausted himself from consuming too much mana. If he consumes a large amount of magical power here, he will not be able to recover it even with medicine for a while. Besides, there were too many eyes to see around. If he uses his real magic here, the aftermath will be so huge that it can't be compared to when he showed the source code. Then, it can be used with less magical power, and it was enough to use the magic that could most effectively overcome the current situation. Roger immediately stopped his floating magic and descended to the ground. He stood in front of the crouching fire giant, who raised his head and stared at Roger. "The festival ends here," Roger said in a low voice that only the fire giant could hear, and activated his magic, which was a little slower since he didn't use source code, but as soon as it was completed the fire giant rattled, perhaps feeling something strange. The metal tray, the medium of summoning, that he hid under his bloated upper body, broke in half with a sudden bang. No matter how much you surround it, you can't fully protect it. His attack went through space and reached the target. It was the coordinate designation magic. The magic that Roger used was not a big deal, but the situation was different since he destroyed the summoning medium of the fire giant. The fire giant opened his eyes in disbelief, but now that the medium of summoning disappeared, there was nothing he could do. The heat so strong that it melted everything around it gradually disappeared, and the fire giant stared at Roger as if to kill him, and his mouth opened wide. Was it going to breathe fire in as a last effort? When everyone thought that, what came out of the spirit's mouth was completely unexpected. Human. Hateful scum. The will of the spirits can be said to be part of Mother Nature, so everyone was surprised that it could speak. "I'm going to burn them all." There was no change in Roger's expression in the face of the incredible sight of the spirit speaking the words of hatred. "Try it." He even provoked the spirit. The fire giant was reverse summoned without doing anything else. Countless sparks scattered in the air, and fire giant disappeared as if it had melted away like a flame that burns without leaving ashes. Oh, my God. The people who were watching the scene couldn't help but be astonished. The supreme spirit of fire that could not be defeated even by countless wizards and knights was subdued by Roger Kalasai alone. The fire giant had completely disappeared, and the case was quickly closed. The wounded were treated and all healthy people were sent home, but the outside was cluttered with citizens who flocked to see what was going on. Rumors of a fire giant appearing at the banquet hall have spread widely. Reporters flocked to try to figure out what was going on, and the police stopped them with their bodies. "Are all the students safe?" "Oh, Mr. Roger." In the temporary clinic that was made to treat the injured, Selena and Marilda, who were waiting nearby, brightened their faces when they saw Roger approaching. "Mr. Roger. As expected, you're safe." "Yes, are you two all right?" Marilda replied, waving her hand. "We're fine. I only helped students and guests evacuate." "I see. Where are all the students?" "I sent them all back. They were just doing part-time work at the banquet, so there was no need to have them stay, but why are you asking?" "I just wanted to make sure everyone is all right. If he persists in asking about Joanna Lovett's whereabouts here, they'll get suspicious, so Roger made up an excuse." Marilda smiled gently as if Roger's answer was unexpected. "Mr. Roger is really interesting, too. When I first saw you, you looked like you wouldn't bleed even if I poked you, but you worried a lot about the students. I guess you care a lot about them." "I hear that a lot." Roger looked around and saw that the injured were taken to hospitals, and the remaining people were cleaning up the scene. Some people were talking to the police about how the incident happened. The incident was clearly defined as a terrorist attack, causing 12 deaths and about 80 injuries. And considering that most of the casualties are people with considerable status in society, the damage could be said to be even greater. If Esmeralda was aiming for this, I'd say she was half successful. While the president was away, she used a summoning medium to summon a supreme spirit of fire. She should have had the intention to kill everyone around using the spirit. Fortunately, the victims were few because of the strong resistance of the guards and wizards. Although the incident wasn't big, it wasn't without damage. The fire spirit might been summoned through a medium, but it was comparable to a 6th-rank wizard. The impact of this incident was beyond description because it imprinted in people's minds that no matter how high the security, attacks will happen somehow. "Mr. Roger?" Then someone approached Roger and called his name. It was Viorano Dentes, one of the wizards who fought against the Giant of Fire until the end at the scene. The elf teacher played a big role with Angela until Roger came forward. "Yes. May I help you? Can I talk to you for a moment?" "It's possible, but..." Roger slurred, and the quick-witted Marilda immediately grabbed Selena's arm and slipped away. "Miss Marilda?" "Selena, let's go this way." When the two were left alone, Viorano bowed to Roger. "Thank you. You helped us end the situation before there were any more victims." "I just did what I had to do." Roger got to know the elf teacher a little better. Although at first glance he seemed a little soft, he was the one who played the biggest role in fighting the supreme spirit of fire. In particular, as the 4th grade teacher, he seemed much better at dealing with spirits than Angela, the 5th grade teacher. In terms of skills, he is superior to Angela Anderson, but is he deliberately staying as the 4th grade teacher because he feels burdened by such a position? Elves are a long-lived species, so they are actually older than their outward appearance. He had the skills, but he was not in charge of the 5th, so he most likely refused to take the position. So you came to me to say thank you? That's true, but I have one question. What is it? You know how strong that fire spirit was, right? Roger nodded his head. He knew the power of a supreme fire spirit without fighting it. Although the medium could not properly handle the power of the spirit, only his upper body came out and his essence was a little twisted, but his power was the real deal. How did you do it? At Viorano's sudden question, Roger asked back with a wistful smile. What do you mean? You knew the spirit was summoned through a medium, right? Yes. To be precise, I found out later. Roger explained to Viorano how he knew that the fire spirit was summoned through a medium. The lower body didn't come out properly. Perhaps the spirit's power was so strong that it couldn't be summoned properly through the medium. It was a coincidence that I realized it. I see. But you're still amazing. Even if it was a coincidence, Mr. Roger noticed the weakness at a glance. Whoever was there would have known right away. I don't think it's because I'm special. No. If it were me, I wouldn't have noticed right away as you had seen it. Viorano laughed bitterly as if he realized his lack of ability in the incident. I'm an elite in spirit science, but because this was so unexpected I couldn't realize it in time. Roger didn't bother to blame him. In the first place, it is very rare for someone to use a medium to summon spirits, so it was an unexpected situation. Spirits are nature's beings, and signing contracts with them and summoning them is the power of Mother Nature and the energy of the contractor. On the contrary, in the case of a medium, it is said that most spirits hate it because it is an artificial summon. In particular, the higher the rank, the stronger their pride, so spirits reject summons through mediums even more. It is not a forced contract between contractor and spirit, but an equal contract with each other that can never be done. I overlooked it because I thought it was too obvious. I didn't think there was someone who could summon a supreme spirit through a medium. The opponent may have so much power. There's definitely that, but I think the fact that the spirit was different from the ordinary spirits played a part. Roger felt that it was different from ordinary spirits. I've never heard of a spirit that hates humans. Isn't that the case with ordinary spirits? The spirits are the image of the energy of nature itself, and nature energy is the source of this world. I know. Spirits are part of nature, and Mother Nature doesn't think about the species that exist inside her. Roger suddenly remembered a lesson he had learned in a previous life. The pursuit of the heavens and the earth and all things. It comes from lousy moral scriptures. People want to influence heaven's will, but heaven doesn't have a will. All things are just beings that live in harmony with nature, like grass or dogs. Even if something goes wrong and something terrible happens, nature does not become a particularly frightening thing. Even if there's a typhoon, a flood, a drought and countless beings die, nature it's just nature and so are the spirits. But the fire spirit was different. Roger could clearly sense his hatred for humans. I didn't think there would be such a spirit in the world. It hates humans and doesn't care about being summoned through a medium. And even the fact that there is a person who made a contract with such a supreme spirit. That's pretty serious. Although it's too late to understand the situation, Mr. Roger did his best, especially the magic you used at the end. Viorano immediately noticed what magic Roger used. It must have transcended space, right? You don't have to be too sensitive about it. Because I'm an elf and I've seen as many things as I've lived for a long time. So what I saw is correct, right? You're right. It was a coordinate designation magic, a method of fixing magic in a specific space and manifesting it in that place. Setting the coordinates. Was that possible? It's hard at first, but it's easy once you get used to it. Viorano didn't quite believe what he said. Others might not understand it, but he was an elf. Although he may look like a small boy in his mid-teens, he has lived more than a century. Even if his main interest was spirit science, he could confidently say that his knowledge of magic was second to none, so he knew that the coordinate designation magic that Roger used was not ordinary magic. There's no way it can be done that easily. Recognizing everything in the world as coordinates and designating a formula there can't be easy. If anyone can do it, it's either because they were born with an excessive perception of space compared to others, or the brain's limiter is completely off. The average person would think it was the former, but Viorano could not dispel his doubts. He thought that Rudger might belong to the second category. Can a person with good brains designate space coordinates leisurely in such an urgent situation? Besides, he invented an extraordinary magic called source code. Viorano asked, slightly concerned. Are you okay? When you use magic, do you feel worse than usual? Rudger, who was trying to ask back what it meant, realized that Viorano's expression was very serious. This may be an old man's nosiness, but please keep it in mind. There's a story that I heard when I was very young. What are you talking about? There are some people who think too much compared to others. Viorano took a breath and spoke again. They're often called geniuses, but they're a little bit different from real geniuses. Geniuses break through their specialized abilities within a given framework, but they are completely different. What's the difference? There's no given framework. Rudger lost his words for a moment and then opened his mouth. That's a good thing. If you don't have a frame, you don't have limits. You might think you're blessed in a way, but you're not. People don't know that the frame is in fact a strong barrier protecting them from the outside. The moment the word outside came out, Rudger clenched his fist unconsciously, but Viorano didn't realize the strangeness of Rudger. As if preoccupied with his explanation, he asked, staring at Rudger with a serious gaze. I'm asking just in case. Mr. Rudger, do you sometimes hear strange sounds? I wanted to post 2 chapters today, but as I was eating dinner yesterday, all of a sudden I heard a snap sound and I couldn't turn my head to the left. My neck hurts a lot and I can't stay too much up, so until I get better, only 1 chapter a day. Can you hear anything? Viorano, who asked that, seemed to have some kind of certainty, but Rudger shook his head and denied it. It didn't happen. Is that so? Yes. Mr. Viorano's comments are very interesting, but unfortunately, they have nothing to do with me. However, it is a little strange that there are people who do not have standards in their talents and thinking. Do you know anything more? I don't know because I've come across it in an old literature. That's all I heard about when I was a kid. If that's what Mr. Viorano, an elf, says, I think it's almost a legend for humans. At Rudger's words, Viorano smirked. Yeah. Maybe. Viorano was disappointed that the man in front of didn't have a framework, but he somehow expected that. If you're an ordinary person, you'll never be able to endure it. People will not know since they live less than 100 years and tried to record a lot of history, but in many cases not all the facts that actually happened are recorded, at most, 70% of them are. 30% is so forgotten by humans, but the elves are different. They have a lifespan over 10 times that of humans, and they're like observers of history. Although their numbers are extremely small and were reduced even more in the wars up until 50 years ago, they still remember it all. There are beings far beyond human cognition in the world. Huge spirits that exist in Mother Nature, higher races far superior to humans, and even existences like monsters and demons that disappeared beyond the barrier of shadows in the giant Spine Mountains. And lastly, looking down at the world. God. Therefore, humans without a framework are quickly destroyed. Their vessels are so small that they dare not contain all the water of higher beings' interest. A talented man may have a bigger bowl, but all he can do is hang in there a little longer. But Mr. Rudger is fine. I didn't feel anything strange before, and I don't feel anything now. I guess he's not the latter case. He was a little disappointed but was relieved because he liked this human teacher in front of him. As soon as he thought so, Rudger opened his mouth and asked a question. I have a question. Yes, go ahead. You said that people who don't have a frame hear voices of being outside. Yes, that's right, although it might be a false rumor. If it's true, then there's more than that? More than that? Viorano stroked his chin and groped his memory, but shook his head immediately. No. As far as I know, there are only cases where people heard voices. Is that so? There may be more, but the average person wouldn't have endured that much to make it there. If they endured it, what do you think will happen? Well, I've never heard of that, but if they really get through it, there might be a next step. Just like how symptoms get worse. Viorano lifted his index finger. I think the next step after hearing voices is seeing things. You mean visions? Yes, but it's just a hypothesis. There's no way there's such a person in the first place. If it was, they'd be crazy. Wouldn't anyone be crazy if they had to see things they didn't want to see all the time? Even long-lived species, especially nature-friendly elves, would have a hard time bearing it, let alone humans. And this is just in case, but if there's another one, I think it's probably this. What is it? If you can hear the voice and see it with your eyes, there's more to it than that. Diorano said that it wasn't a big deal and it wouldn't happen anyway. You can have direct contact. And added one more word. God. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Diorano left to explain the details of the incident. It was in the midst of his busy schedule that he had come to say thanks to Roger. Roger watched his back for a while before moving. Is it contact with God? Diorano's hypothesis was interesting. No, beyond interesting, Roger was deeply impressed. Because it's all true. As expected of an elf who lived for a long time. Narrowing the truth all the way here with a story he read a long time ago. But I'm not going to tell you anyway. His constitution was not something that could be easily talked about. That's why he's trying to suppress it with his own magic, but this wasn't important now. Joanna Lovett. No, Esmeralda, First Order of the Black Dawn Society. What should I do with her? Roger contemplated a lot while talking to Diorano. Should he hint at the real culprit of the Spirit of Fire terrorist attack? If he does that, he can clean up one of the most intrusive First Orders, but he will also be suspected if Esmeralda were to be identified. She, who has not been active until now, is identified as the culprit the moment she moves for the first time. If that happened, Black Dawn might start an investigation, and that would be a disaster for Roger. If I make assumptions without proof, things will be troublesome. It was clear from the circumstances that Joanna Lovett was Esmeralda. However, her opponent is a contractor who wields the highest level of fire spirits. The power of the supreme spirits is close to that of the 6th rank. In particular, the fire spirit may be even more dangerous because it is so different from normal spirits. It will not be easy to overpower such an opponent without considerable force. To do that, the president must step in, but when that happens, it will become difficult to hide the truth. In other words, Roger's immediate income was that he discovered Esmeralda's identity, but he couldn't decide what to do with it yet. Is it better to pretend that I don't know? He had no choice but to, since Esmeralda would have noticed that Roger had come forward and cleaned up the scene. Unless she's a fool, she won't argue why he interrupted her. Roger also went out when he thought it was appropriate. He came to a conclusion immediately. I can't touch her for now. If Esmeralda's identity is revealed immediately after the incident has just begun, the Black Dawn will suspect a traitor. He's doing it for his safety, but if he touches Esmeralda, he would be in more danger, so he had to wait and see. When she acts next time and shows her tail, at least a little. At that time, he will use Thean power to secretly reveal her true identity. So I'm waiting. Patience was one of his greatest weapons. The next morning, the fire spirit terror incident was featured on the front page of the newspaper. Terrorists attacked the banquet hall. Who is the culprit? The provocative title, which was largely written in black, naturally caught the eye. I sat at an outdoor table in a secluded cafe and opened the newspaper. Well, it caused a riot, but it would be rather strange if it's not known. Leathervalk expressed its regret for this incident and threatened to find the culprit, but Roger didn't think they could do anything. If they could catch the Black Dawn Society, they would have done it long ago. There are all sorts of conspiracy theories regarding the culprit's identity. Starting with lunatic terrorists, the opinion that the perpetrator of the terrorist attack was the work of the Liberation Army was dominant. In particular, considering that the majority of the victims who died this time are high-ranking members of society, it was inevitable that people would think it was the Liberation Army. They didn't do it, but took the blame. Roger felt that it was a bit silly, but he didn't like the Liberation Army anyway. To put it bluntly, he was closer to hating the Liberation Army. Because of them, I am suffering now. My teeth are still gnashing at the thought of that time. If they hadn't stormed the magic train he was on, his hidden face wouldn't have been destroyed and he wouldn't have been forced into Thean Academy. But what can he do? It already happened. Now all that remained for Roger was to do his best in the current situation. On the next page of the newspaper, there was an article written in small letters about the fact that the security of the auction at the Kunst auction house would be strengthened. And the fact that Luke's director, Ivan Luke, is the main host of the Kunst auction house. The man's rude face came to his mind. Is he the main host of the auction this time? Perhaps Ivan Luke will make the event even bigger, especially to make up for the scandal at the banquet hall. It will attract people, hold more spectacular ceremonies, and increase costs. He will restore his collapsed image by making a big fuss this time, and solidify his stake as a director at Luke. A faint smile formed around Roger's mouth. I'm looking forward to it. If the auction ends without a hitch, Ivan Luke will be able to make up for what happened out of his father's sight. If it ends without a hitch, it's a pity for Ivan that he does not know that the man he quarreled with at the banquet hall is secretly attending the auction. Roger, who had been thinking that far, folded the newspaper because the person he was waiting for came. Are you here? You said you were a teacher. Can you come out like this early in the morning? Looking at Violetta staring at me with a slightly dissatisfied gaze, I got up from my seat. You don't seem to be in a good mood. If you call someone as a guide early in the morning, everyone will be like that. For that, I think you put a lot of effort into your makeup. Makeup is like armor to a woman. It takes a long time to prepare. So it was. Violetta was dressed a little differently than before. At that time, she wore a black dress with a strange atmosphere to be formal, but this time, it was more of an easy-to-move activity suit. She wore long leather boots on the legs and a leather corset fitted to the waist and a wide-brimmed hat that blocked the sunlight on her head. After all of her burns were healed, she no longer wore the black cotton yarn that covered her face. It's a suit that an adventurer or mercenary would wear. There is nothing more comfortable than this when moving around. Let's go, we have to see what has changed. Yeah. There is only one reason why Roger came out to Leathervelk early in the morning. It was to confirm the changed appearance of the slums. Violetta was already anxious to show him the changes. Her thorny attitude from when they first met disappeared and now she looked like an excited young woman. Now, look, this is the new street. Oh. The streets of the dirty, smelly slums I had seen before were completely cleaned up. As you said, I used the money and hired people. Cleaning, grooming, eliminating the existing shabby buildings, and building new ones required a huge amount of money and manpower. And this is a place full of surplus manpower that other people don't use. I spent more than 80% of the budget on this. The huge amount of money in the vault of Belbot Rixon and the money from the Red Society was used to fix the slums. The effect was clear because the dying streets were starting to come alive. As you said, I will make this road a street of artists. The dark and dull slums were gone and carpenters were seen tearing down shabby houses and working hard on new houses. The children, who used to always sell newspapers, were seen running around. This is the newly opened clothing store. Violetta had brought Roger to a clothing store with large glass windows showing the inside display. There, people belonging to the women of the Black Rose were moving around eagerly arranging and cutting clothes, but out of sight countless steam engines were also moving and pulling out fabric. First of all, I'm focused on using machines to pull out as many clothes as I can. Popular clothes come first, but when we get to a certain level, we're going to challenge the luxury brand. You must be confident, right? The opponents are those who have long taken root in the empire beyond this city. I have always dreamed of this moment. Violetta smiled confidently. No matter how deep the roots of a tree are, if it is rotten, it will fall down when the wind blows. That's a good resolution. Would you like to look inside? No, thanks. I'll check the other places. Then I'll show you somewhere else. Roger has only checked one clothing store, but there are more places that need to be inspected.